Walking through the city, lights all aglow. Everybody's got a story to show. Wheels keep spinning, streets overflow. Hustle never stops, we're in the flow. Skylines high like our dreams in the air. Concrete jungle, we got flair. Rhythm of the night, we don't care. Underneath the stars, we breathe rare. In this urban jungle, we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side. Echoes of the past linger near. Future calls, we face it with no fear. Every corner tells a tale so clear. In the city we chase what we hold dear. Shadows and whispers blend in the night. City's pulse beats with all its might. Lost in the chaos but it feels right. We rise above, reach new heights. In this urban jungle we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side. Urban jungle, we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side.
And welcome to today's Order Paper podcast. Lisa, welcome back to the show. How is the good Auckland treating you today?
Very well, although it looks a bit like it's going to rain.
Oh, I've received multiple alerts today to say it's meant to be raining in Newtown now, and we've got bright, sunny blue skies.
Well, that's nice.
Oh, I know. The good old things of Wellington's weather. And any little juicy nuggets of submission news that you think the viewers should know about the Gene Technology Bill?
Oh, goodness. That's why I was hoping Michael Trott would come on with me, because he's more up to date than me. I was thinking that I was going to be talking about Fonterra, and I have a little juicy nugget that isn't quite GE, but Greenpeace are out there at the moment protesting in New Plymouth to try and stop some palm oil coming in.
Oh, okay.
And it appears that Fonterra is advertising their anchor butter globally as with grass-fed cows, but in fact they're having a large amount of palm oil, a palm kernel, which is, of course, cutting down the rainforests and the tigers and the orangutans and various other creatures. It's their home. So
yeah. Oh,
and so I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure what Fonterra's position is going to be in their submission, but which I'm not doing. But they're obviously not being very truthful. And this is the concern that I have, is that businesses might not be truthful and try and continue to play on New Zealand's clean, green, GE-free image.
Yes. No, I definitely saw the bit on Q&A this morning. Thanks for alerting me to that.
It's all right.
Yeah, that there's a lot of farmers who are concerned about not having that available as an option.
And, when they talked about seed drift, I had known about seed drift, but I hadn't thought about the bees buzzing between crops. So you can't keep crops separate.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I didn't think about the bee stuff either. That was just like, what the hell? But it is so true because bees, you can't contain them within a fence. It's just not going to work.
So it's not very democratic to have one group of people headed by William Rolleston, who has a biotech company, saying, well, we're going to make all of New Zealand genetically engineered one way or another as time goes on.
Yeah. Okay, just for those of viewers to know, we are also streaming for the first time on on the platform TikTok as well. So we're giving it a bit of a try, but it's quite interesting just watching some of the stats sort of things there. To monitor the TikTok stuff, I've actually got to monitor a separate window because the API doesn't actually put the comments on the right hand side of the screen that viewers can see when they type for the show. Is something you probably saw interacting when on the show last time, that you might see comments start to appear during the show. Yeah. Oh, let's kick off now. The list I'm going off is Friday, the 14th of March, Select Committee A, and one of our panelists are going to be on later on today. We've got Elvira's submission. So let's kick that one off. It's okay. Might have to start off with a bit of these little house rule stuff that Parliament kicks off with.
Right. Well, while you're doing that, I will mention that Elvira is a scientist.
That's that's the one that's worked at Whole Foods or somewhere beforehand?
I forget where she worked, but anyway, she was a bit disgusted with it all, so she left. So and is not working as a scientist at the moment.
Oh, what a shame. Let's jump a little bit up.
And do we have Elvira there?
Gee, it must be frustrating having to wait for all
Good morning,
of us to
Elvira.
line
It's Sam
up
Attendale here,
in
the chair of
Parliament.
the Health Committee. Very good to have you here as our first submitter this morning. We have you for 5 minutes. I will hand that time over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I worked at Crop and Food in Lincoln for 8 years and set up the GE Onion program there. Around this time, the first GE food, the Flavour Saver tomato, engineered only with its own DNA, made it to the US market. This was after rats fed on these GE tomatoes developed lesions in their stomachs. The bill would mean New Zealand having the most extreme combination in the world of organisms that can be gene engineered or edited. I'm going to use the term GE to include all gene technologies. Most GE crops in the world are grown as monocultures. Years of growing crops engineered with herbicide resistance and insecticidal toxins have resulted in herbicide-resistant weeds and insects resistant to the toxins. GE crops are about ownership of patented DNA. Such patents deny farmers the right to save seeds. This bill favours patents and the money they might make, but ignores the voice of farmers and consumers. There's no demand for GE food here or from overseas. Claims about possible benefits of GE are not a reason to destroy our country's thriving non-GMO export industry. Only 20 out of 195 countries have relaxed their gene tech laws. The rest still currently have strict regulations. We've been told that crops that are gene edited by SDN1 and SDN2 processes are equivalent to conventionally bred crops and should be exempt from regulation. However, the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services says that SDN1 and 2 can create outcomes with no known equivalence in conventional breeding. Non-GE crops are leading the way in terms of yield, pest and disease resistance, and tolerance to drought and salinity. Sound management of soil, crop, and animal health also supports high yields and pest and disease resistance. That's why organic agriculture focuses on healthy soil biology. GE crops, animals, and microbes can produce toxins, allergens, and anti-nutrients. Research has shown that GE crops fed to lab animals have caused disturbing effects, including organ damage, cancerous lesions, and damage to the immune and reproductive systems. Sadly, it can be career suicide to publish on the harmful effects of GE foods. Scientists doing this work have often lost their jobs or their research funding because results are inconvenient for industry. The potential for harm with GE soil microbes is even greater than for GE crops or animals because microbes share genetic material with each other much more readily. Containment would be near impossible. The precision of gene editing doesn't mean it's safe. Small changes in genes can be just as devastating as large changes. It's easier and faster to edit genes, but it's also to cause harm, and this makes regulation much more essential. Those doing GE work may have little or no expertise in risk assessment. We have a scientist in New Zealand who is an international expert on the biosafety of GMOs. Why was he not consulted in the drafting of this bill? Coexistence of GE and non-GE crops is not possible if they produce pollen or seed. Wind, insects, and birds will always transport pollen and seed. That's their job in nature. Medical gene therapies. The bill says that the minister can mandate medical gene therapies, including synthetic modified mRNA injections. Meanwhile, in the USA, 9 states are in the process of legislating a ban on all mRNA injections. Injected mRNA can genetically engineer human DNA through the enzyme reverse transcriptase and through synthetic bacterial plasmid DNA, a contaminant manufacturing. Another very important contaminant, very concerning contaminant, is the SV40 promoter and enhancer, known to promote the growth of cancer tumours. SV40 genetic material has been found in some Pfizer batches. Published research and clinical data have documented adverse effects caused by the COVID mRNA injections, including inflammation, blood clots, damage to the blood vessels and immune system, and much more. The mRNA injection did not stop infection or transmission, and COVID was always treatable with effective therapeutics. Article 6, Section 3 of the Nuremberg Code states that no government can mandate or force medical treatment without individual consent. My concluding remarks: we have an easy solution available, and that is to update the Has No Act. Questions on how to regulate or prohibit any gene technologies to reduce risk require open, transparent, and honest debate involving all sectors of society. Thank you.
That was spot on 5 minutes, Vera. You're the first person to ever do that. But also, thank you very much for your presentation.
Pleasure.
Very thoughtful and considered for your care in this area. Have a good day.
Hi, thank you. You too.
Well, it's a shame there was no chance for questions there.
I stopped my submission to give him time for questions, but he didn't ask any anyway.
Far out. So no one in the committee was interested in asking you for questions.
No, didn't happen with me either.
Gee, maybe you're just making too much sense in the information that's been said in there, which means it gives us very little to commentate on.
Well, Alvera made an awful lot of sense. I mean, it's quite hard to pick up everything when she's at 1.5 going quite fast. Yes, I was picking up particularly about the soil microbes and GE and the chemicals that they use with GE destroys the soil microbes. And so then you have to continue doing the same thing because nature can't do its own thing, which it normally does in regenerative farming or organic farming.
Yeah, that makes, as you say.
So it's a bit like farmers that are using phosphorus all the time as well. They're in a trap now because they can't not use it.
Yeah, or if they do try to get out of it, it could take them, 10 plus years to get out of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hey, well, the next submitter on my list is Diane Downward. So let's see what.
Before we go there, I had another couple of little points, if you like.
Go ahead.
I wrote down risk assessment because what isn't sufficient in this gene technology bill is the risk assessment. And it's just being shoved, the bill's being shoved through really fast. And they're missing things that really needs to happen. We have to have really strict risk assessment. I mean, because you can't go back with genetic engineering, you can't turn back the clock.
No.
Once it's out, it's out. So you've got to have incredibly tight risk assessment for that. Pollens and seeds, I wrote down, well, yes, we know that they travel. And as we said at the beginning of the show, and bees will be involved in that.
And I hope, like hell, this doesn't damage our Manuka honey industry.
Well, it will.
Yeah.
It will, totally. A whole lot of businesses, yeah. And then she talked about the mRNA vaccines. Now, I have not been impressed with the behavior of the anti-vax movement, not at all. But I do think that there is a point about that mRNA, how does it affect us? And, when they're doing vast numbers of vaccines, you can always have ones that have mistakes in them.
Typhoid was a big one that happened in New Zealand. It'll be back probably in your era, but that was one of the ones where a bad batch of a typhoid vaccine ended up causing quite a lot of harm to some people, but in turn it led to a big mass push to get vaccinated.
I think that was probably before I arrived in New Zealand.
Okay.
I had to be vaccinated against smallpox to be allowed to come.
Yes.
So before we got on the ship to come here, I had to have a vaccine passport. So when
Yeah.
everybody was screaming out about vaccines passports, and I was saying, well, I've had one already.
Yeah, and I mean, if we go onto my records on Manage My Health, or well, the successor version that my medical practice uses, it does show the vaccines that I had when I was a baby. It does show the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine when I was about 10. It shows the tetanus vaccine when I was about 12. So there's the whole list of all of that is all on there.
Yeah.
So I mean,
my youngest son, who's the same age as you, he had a whooping cough vaccine, which was a bad batch. And he was ill on and off for a year.
Ooh.
And the only reason I knew it was a bad batch was because the doctor's receptionist told me, and she got into major trouble with the doctor for telling me.
Oh.
But he was having pneumonia, kidney infections, everything from age 1 till 2. It was absolutely terrible.
It is not fun.
So, and it's very hard to be sympathetic towards vaccines when you've had a bad batch like that.
Exactly.
Kids are under-vaccinated now.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Okay, let's move on to our next submitter.
One other thing, though. She does say update the HASNO Act, and that is important. But I don't know the details of HASNO, so I can't expand on that. And that was my other thing I wrote down that she mentioned.
Okay, let's kick off. Diane.
All right, that takes us to our second presenter today, Diane Downward. Good morning, Diane. I can see you're connecting now.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we have you here. We have you for 5 minutes, Diane. I'll hand that time to you now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We've been told of the wonders of GE like an ad campaign. Everything is wonderful, and yet you don't want to boldly proclaim a product is genetically engineered or genetically modified in the labels of products. Instead, an unelected, unknown regulator will get to decide what is close enough to nature that it doesn't need regulating and thus no labeling required. People want food created by nature, not in a lab. That is why food proclaiming no GMO on the label is popular and boldly printed, not hidden by a sleight of hand regulation change as this bill proposes. Yes, we've been changing the food we eat over thousands of years through natural means of cross-pollination and selected breeding. A mule is a cross between a donkey and a horse, but if mules can't create more mules, nature has its limits. Gene technology may be able to overcome this, but should we go down this path? So far, trials to create a hornless cow have failed miserably, with animals suffering cruelly and becoming infertile. Nature has limits, and it's our hubris to think we can do better. We share 98.8% of genes with chimpanzees, but that 1.2% difference has a huge impact. Small changes can have massive effects. Whether our food is organic or conventional, many of our overseas markets do not want GE food. Therefore, this is clearly a matter of national economic importance. Overseas, there has been boycotts of products made from cow's feed with GE feed Bovaer. Reports from farmers that have used this product say their animals suffer, are sick, produce less milk, and don't want the feed, which is also expensive. Yet some will say Bovaer is a success because the cows don't burp so much. Whoopee. The same result can be achieved through feeding ruminants a natural varied diet with plantain, seaweed, and other naturally occurring plants, and not restricting them to a monoculture of ryegrass. Liability is a huge issue, with Lab Technician X or Company X having no liability for what they produce. They're not responsible for accidents, not responsible for cleanup, not responsible for how it affects our economy, health, side effects, unforeseen results, and so on. As long as they meant well, it's okay. They'll be more careful next time. Yeah, right. One of the best safety checks to ensure a good outcome is to make people liable for what they create. If this technology is so wonderful, so safe, with no danger of it escaping and infecting neighboring fields with GE-altered seeds and plants, why is this no liability clause actually necessary? We don't actually know how altered plants will affect birds, bees, and all the insect life we don't think about, but it's vital for plant reproduction, soil health, and in the end, our health. Another troubling aspect of this bill is using 2 overseas regulators to greenlight the use of something in New Zealand. It doesn't say they have to be from different countries, just 2 different regulators. Why reinvent the wheel, I've been told? Well, it all depends on how ethical the wheel is. I wrote about and referenced the latest court case against Merck and their Gardasil vaccine being contaminated with HPV DNA, the very thing it is meant to protect young women from, and that the regulator, the very government body meant to oversee and protect people, was complicit in covering up contamination. How many daughters, sisters, nieces in New Zealand have already been harmed by this corruption? Or maybe they will be next time they receive a booster. This is not an isolated case, and this bill is relying on the integrity of regulators to guarantee the safety of our food supply, our health, and our economy. Regulators in any country are prime targets for corruption, as big pharma, big food, and the agrochemical industry all have very deep pockets and interest in helping government agencies or regulators smooth the compliance process. This bill has needlessly been rushed with no proper cost-benefit analysis or thinking through all the consequences. Government is meant to do the will of the people. This is a coalition government, and despite your coalition agreement, it doesn't have the mandate from the people to push this through. The majority of the people don't want to have gene technology laws liberalized. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my video on.
That's okay. You've got 10 seconds. You can do it. No, but that was a valuable presentation, a passionate presentation. Thank you for presenting to the committee this morning.
Right.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Next up, we have.
Gee, there seems to be never quite get enough time to get questions.
I know. Well, and you have to go as fast as you possibly can to fit it in. I mean, the whole thing. You've got 5 minutes, and we were told it was going to be very, very, strict about time.
Yes.
Because there were a lot of submissions, but I mean, they're only hearing 400 of the 900 people who said that they would submit.
So it sounds
orally submit.
That sounds very similar to the Treaty Principles Bill.
Well, yes, they learnt how to fiddle things then and applied it to us as well. Yeah.
No, the next one I think is going to be on is the 4-year parliamentary term.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, I think that that's a good idea to have a 4-year parliamentary term because the MPs have 1 year to get used to the job, 2 years to do it, and 1 year to electioneer. At the moment, they only have 1 year to do the job. Anyway.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because when I worked for BP, the standard progression system for when you move up the ranks in the company is that you are meant to wait 2 years in a position in a senior management position before you move up the ranks. So say if you become a cafe team lead, which is what the highest position I got before I left, I would have to be in that role for 2 years before I could apply to become a store manager, which that makes sense. But I do know there were situations where people, jump the chain a bit quicker than what it would normally be.
Well, I think our Prime Minister did that.
Yes, yeah, you actually are right. I mean, he is probably the first Prime Minister who hadn't even done one term in Parliament, and he is in the top job.
And actually, most of the national MPs are pretty inexperienced. You've got about fewer than a handful that actually have been in Parliament for any length of time or actually have, sort of know much about what they're doing. I mean, you've got obviously David Seymour and Winston Peters, but we'll forget them. Yes, it's. I think they do need longer in office to be able to learn the job. I mean, looking at Damien O'Connor this morning on the Q&A, I mean, he really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah,
he's confident. I didn't agree entirely because I'm more of a pacifist than him, but generally, I thought what he said was pretty sensible. And I thought, now why can't we have somebody like that in Parliament instead of a bunch of people that really don't know what they're doing? But anyway, going back to Diane Downward, do you want me to make a comment?
Yeah, make some comments, yes.
Well, she mentioned about the regulator, because this bill has a regulator, or they'll have 2 regulators. Or is it? No, only 1 regulator, sorry. I mean, corruption can creep in so easily. I mean, we're already in New Zealand, in Parliament, we have lobbyists coming in all the time. We have some of the most lax lobbying laws in the world, really.
Yeah.
And so, you could have corruption. And what else was I going to say about that?
And the authorities don't even have to be New Zealand. So we could have the FDA of the United States doing it, which historically was known as a well-reputable source, but has become a lot more questionable in more recent times. And do we really want something that got greenlit by the US FDA that actually is making the decision on there, considering some of the decisions that come from the FDA now, we just literally go like, a what?
Yeah, no, that was exactly what I wanted to say, was that the regulators don't have to come from New Zealand. I mean, not the regulators, the regulations. If they say, well, is this genetically modified crop safe? And two people from overseas put their hands up and say, yes, it's totally safe. So little old New Zealand will just say, okay, well, we'll have it then, because they probably know better than us. Well, I don't know about that. Anyway.
Yeah, I love what was it Soraya has put in here was no antitrust. We've got, which is probably no antitrust laws.
Yes.
Yeah, which is true. It's like how we ended up with a duopoly for our supermarkets.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing was, Diane pointed out the difference between humans and chimpanzees being absolutely minimal, just a few genes, and yet it makes quite a lot of difference. I mean, I'd have to shave my arms all the time if I was. No, seriously. I mean, we are quite different from chimpanzees. So, you change the genes of something, and she's both Elvira and Diane have mentioned about animals and the suffering and the awful things that happen when they genetically modify animals. So, that was mainly what I was going to say.
Okay, let's get on to Jenny Easton.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny, I can just see that you're joining up to us now. So welcome to the Health Committee. It's very good to have you here. We have you for 5 minutes, Jenny, so I'll hand that time over to you now. Thank you. You're on mute as well. Good to go. Although we still can't hear anything.
Oh, all these technical gifts.
Is there a volume button on your computer that you might be able to turn up?
Mr. Chair, I might quickly hand over Jenny and bring her back and move to the next senator.
That's an excellent idea. All right, we'll do that, and Jenny, the clerk will work with you. And we'll move on to our next submitter, Soraya Bradley.
Okay, it looks like we're moving to Soraya at the moment, who I believe is watching us live.
Soraya, I see you've just come online. Very good to have you here in front of the Health Committee. We have you for 5 minutes, Soraya, so I'll hand that time to you now. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
We've got you.
Great. So in my submission, I've sought to create an evidence-based framework to debunk the need for GMO, particularly in agriculture. So I'm an artist, so I don't really have expertise like a lot of the other people here, but my partner, I live on a regenerative organic farm, which is accidentally organic regenerative because it's just how my father-in-law farmed. So unlike Australia, which has a desert in the middle, New Zealand is a highly fertile ecosystem. So it's very difficult for us to have organics and normal agriculture integrated with GMO because we're just too fertile and it will spread. Long ago, Big Ag argued the only way we can feed the world is through chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and lately GMO. However, this science was incomplete because we didn't know very much about soil microbes. To the best of my knowledge, New Zealand farmers are the only farmers in the developed world that do not take subsidies from the government. When we look at GMO agriculture, especially in America, that is heavily subsidized by the taxpayer because it's a low value product. And so the government has to pay subsidies. It's almost half of every dollar that they earn, they have to get subsidies for. So 85% of the global genetically modified organisms is accounted for by just 4 countries. That includes America at 40%, Brazil at 26%, Argentina at 12%, and Canada at 7%. The number of countries that planted GMOs peaked in 2010 at 29 countries, and it has been progressively declining year by year since. As of 2019, 88% of countries have no GMO hectares at all. Australia's share of GMO is 0.4% of the world's agriculture, and it's GMO agriculture and is declining. And Australia's GMO agriculture accounts for just 0.2% of agriculture in New Zealand. So, and after almost 40 years of investment in GMO crops, 99% of GMO are just 4 crops, which are GMO soy, GMO corn, GMO cotton, and GMO canola. So in New Zealand, our focus in ag research has been on developing GMO ryegrass, which is quite a radical thing because it's not an annual, so it can cross-contaminate. And so what we've seen is the only grass that has been developed as a grass called Triffid grass or Scots Triffid grass or something, and it escaped a field trial. And because of the way that the genetics works, it is interbreed with other species, and it is passed on the Roundup Ready gene, so it's like a dominant colonizing gene, and so that's why it's really concerning for farmers if you release a GMO, because we can't stop it. Sorry. So, and the other thing that I just wanted to point out particularly is that in 2019, methantrophs were discovered in common soil. So methantrophs are a bacteria that feed on methane, and they are produced in pastures that we have that ruminants feed on. And so most methane floats up into the atmosphere and is burnt up by sunlight. And methantrophs, and so the way farmers farm, are the only way that we know how to control methane as human beings. So that accounts for about 20% of the methane that we can burn, is whether our farmers farm in a way that grow methantrophs in the soil. So most New Zealand farmers are already doing this by use of diverse pastures and not using synthetic fertilizer. So we're already one of the best farmers in the world in terms of our environmental sustainability. It's just that we've sort of got into a lock with our research, and we're not actually looking what is the best environmental. We're focused on a seed, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'll open for questions.
Soraya, we've just reached time, so thank you very much for your submission and for joining us today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another no questions. Oh, sorry. I've just hit the mute. There we are.
Oh, but you got a thumbs up from Steve Abel, Soraya. So
Yeah.
that was great. I thought that was really interesting, because there was quite a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know, and all about government subsidies. I didn't really know much about that, and so there was heaps of information there. And the thing that I did know a little bit about was the ryegrass. Now, some years ago, when I was a Green Party candidate, so it would have been 2008, a company contacted me and said, we want you to come and have a look at our ryegrass. We made ryegrass, but it's not genetically engineered. It's just been done through conventional breeding, fiddling around. And I saw this ryegrass, and they were very excited about it. And then a bit later, I was at protesting at a conference in Rotorua with a lot of biotechnicians, and this scientist went there to present his ryegrass. But for some reason, and I don't know what it was turned down, and it's not the one. I had a look. It's not the one that they're just talking about at the moment. So there's been this push for GE ryegrass amongst some farmers. And I can see that there is a point about methane, but as Sarah was saying about methantrophs, I haven't heard of them before, but that give off the right things into the atmosphere or eat up with methane or whatever. You see, the stupid way that we farm cows is we just give them grass. Now, when I went to an organic farm, a girlfriend I went to school with actually in the UK, I went to her organic farm, and she had the British government paid her to keep one field fallow every year. And so I looked at this fallow field, and it was fantastic. It was full of wildflowers, all sorts of plants in amongst the grass. And this is what the cows need to do. They need to be able to have things in there, in the grass, that they eat that will stop them from farting. I mean, it's pretty basic, isn't it? You change your diet if you have wind. So
yeah, which I mean, I know I've got to do that at the moment.
Well, you're dairy intolerant like me, so I know the story.
Yeah.
So Sarah's saying up there she couldn't get Zoom to load. I'm not quite sure.
Unless that was on the thing for there, or is she going to the wrong place instead of Restream? I
don't know.
Yeah.
But no, that was. I mean, we've just had 3 really awesome submissions.
I know.
Yeah. And I think you will have me later in the day. And I have,
Yes, you are on that list.
yeah, but I won't be here because I'll be at our family Sunday dinner.
Oh, got to have that once. Got to have that, as you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up says Essential Touch NZ Limited,
Interesting.
and they get 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up we have Essential Touch New Zealand. John Sanderson joining us from Essential Touch New Zealand. John, good to have you here. We have you for 10 minutes. I'll hand it to you now. Thank you. And you're on mute as well, John.
Can you hear me
There
now?
we go.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Okay, hey, kia ora koutou, Health Select Committee. I'm John from Essential Touch NZ Limited. I'm a co-owner and director. I talk separately, personally, on the issue of food sovereignty, right to choose, coexistence of problems, communities' rights, including local council regulation, compensation, liability, and New Zealand's long history of importing pests with unintended consequences, both intended release and accidental releases. So today, I'll be more focused on the economic ramifications of this bill. Seems to be the only thing that is important to this government. I've been in business for 25 years. Our business has been in business for 25 years. We're in over 700 stores nationwide, including almost all Woolworths and most foodstuff stores. We make an outdoor skincare range of cosmetics. Our products are Nature Certified Natural, a rigorous international standard developed in Europe and administered here in New Zealand by BioGrow New Zealand. All our ingredients must be certified GMO-free to maintain our certification. Our ingredients include certified organic beeswax from Central Otago and wild-crafted Manuka essential oil from the East Cape. It's hard to imagine how our beeswax would be able to maintain that status if, for example, there was a GM alfalfa release where the bees were pollinating the alfalfa in the area of our, where the beeswax comes from. Foraging bees pollinating a variety of plants will also contaminate the Manuka. Any ability of us to source our pure, sustainable ingredients jeopardise our entire business and the 25 years of work that we've put into it. Our products source ingredients from both New Zealand and overseas, and our products are wholly designed and manufactured in New Zealand. Our products are sought after in New Zealand and around the world. Tourists are introduced to our products as they travel around New Zealand, and our products are premium even in grocery. Travellers looking for an authentic, sustainable and healthy New Zealand gravitate to our products. Our business is also certified B Corp. Certified B Corporations are leaders in the global movement for an inclusive, equitable and regenerative economy. This is where the world is going. This is where there's an opportunity to add value, and as well as making the world a better place. Our products also carry the Fern Mark, and this is from Fern Mark. The Fern Mark license program helps promote and protect New Zealand products and services on a global scale. The program gives licensees the right to carry the Fern Mark, a trademark that is used by New Zealand government departments across the world. The Fern Mark represents the story of who we are and where we're from, our New Zealand story. It's a symbol that people recognise and trust. A trademark that embodies ko tikitanga, manaki, tiaki, and pono, the values of our New Zealand story. The Fern Mark is brand New Zealand, and I believe the Gene Tech Bill will irreversibly damage New Zealand's brand and by association all the businesses that shelter under that brand. The Gene Tech Bill is incompatible with the aspirations above I just spoke about. It is the intangible effect of on our overall brand that will no longer come from pure New Zealand, and that the Fern Mark no longer means as much in the eyes of the world's consumers. One of the world's most admired and longest running destination tourism campaigns, Tourism New Zealand's 100% pure New Zealand brand has just turned 25. This is also wholly reliant on New Zealand's environmental and food reputation. I understand that New Zealand has other environmental issues such as pollution, microplastics in the environment, and in some places poor water quality, but all of those are solvable. If you wholesale release GM crops and pasture into the New Zealand environment, you will catastrophically and irreversibly ruin the environment and food system here in New Zealand forever. It will make a mockery of 100% pure New Zealand. Our food system, our environment, is core to who we are and the image we wish to convey to the rest of the world. To date, the most successful GM crops are canola, corn and soy. They are mass-produced, pesticide-laden, cheap calories that dominate the American food system and are associated with extremely poor health outcomes, of which various cancers, obesity and diabetes are the most obvious. This is what we want for New Zealand. This is not the New Zealand that tourists would come here for. And just a couple of points from Frontiera in their release. Our organic business is strong overall. I'll just skip that part. The cooperative's organic sales forecast is up 25% compared to last year on kilos per milk solid basis, and contracted sales are in a strong position for this time of season. Organic consumers are prepared to pay a significant premium for products they believe to be healthier and more sustainable. Our pasture-based farming in New Zealand offers a real point of difference that helps us contribute to our co-op strategy and maximise the value for our shareholders' milk. Frontier Organics program has been running since 2002. Over the past 4 years, the program has more than doubled in size and currently has over 100 farms. Global demand is growing as consumers are prepared to pay a premium for organic products. According to a recent Euromonitor report, the global organic dairy market is currently valued at around 23 billion and is expected to reach 65 billion by 2033. So New Zealand's reputation for clean, safe and GMO-free products is a competitive advantage in the global markets. Deregulation will damage the New Zealand brand. Licensing GE rules could put this advantage at risk. Loosening GE rules could put this advantage at risk, especially for organic and high-value exports. The New Zealand Institute of Economic Research estimates that New Zealand's primary sector exports could be reduced by 10 to 20 billion annually if GMOs released into the environment. According to a recent NZTE International Consumer Survey, trust and safety are considered the key purchasing drivers for global consumers when looking to buy products and services. Australia and the UK and Singapore are particular countries where products made from New Zealand hold a strong reputation as trusted and safe. Consumer groups from around the world, including Japan and the Philippines, have expressed their horror and dismay that New Zealand will deregulate gene technology. The Gene Technology Bill fails to properly protect New Zealand Inc. from major commercial exposures, strategic gaming by offshore competitors, and losses arising from accident or malintent. The state's neglect would include economic impacts being excluded from consideration, no liability for harm, highly discriminatory legal rights, frequent overrides of good regulatory practice, and no genuine regulatory independence. Perhaps the most extraordinary part is that for all effort being made to shelter outdoor users from commercial realities, the biggest threat to them in the country is in the economy is beyond Parliament's control. That threat is the high level of consumer resistance to GMO foods internationally that have persisted for 30 years. For example, more than 3 times as many consumers think GMO food is unsafe to eat as those who think it is safe, on average, according to 20 country Pewter Research Centre polls. And in no country surveyed were there more who think it is safe than unsafe. As a result, consumers vote overwhelmingly for GM content to be labelled. For example, Ipsos polling showed 86% of EU consumers favour the labelling of GMO food made from GMO crops and 81% of food made from animals fed with GMO crops. Monsanto famously once said that when they were asked about GMO labelling, that putting GMO labelling on their food would be like putting a skull and crossbones on it. That's because of the way that consumers would view it. Okay, so if that's the case, why are we even going there? Yet prior to this bill being framed, the government failed to properly scope the risks, let alone model them with no cost-benefit analysis done. So the bill has been constructed with literally no estimate of what level of economic benefits its skewed treatment of gene tech would generate, and so no idea of what it might be trading a way to get that. And with food making up a majority of our export income, the potential impacts of consumer resistance to GMO food is clearly a matter of national economic importance. Given that money talks for this government and any other jurisdiction, the cold hard numbers is what they care about. That is why it is so hard to understand why they're hell-bent on introducing a poorly thought out and dangerous bill. It's clear its architecture comes from extensive lobbying and insider development from the biotech industry. It reads like a wish list.
Careful on making accusations like that, John. Like, your presentation's been really good, but please don't make such insinuations. And I just know Steve has a question as well, if you want to give him a moment. Thank you.
I'll just finish. Can I? Okay. So our business opposes. I'm just saying that the economic goal of this is an economic own goal of biblical proportions, and the government will become a pariah to all future governments and generations if it is allowed to proceed. Our business opposes the gene tech bill in its entirety and recommends it abandoned. Current regulations, including the HASNO, have effectively protected the environment, along with local community regulation and the councils that have put GMO regulation in place, particularly in the north down to the south of Auckland. If the bill is not abandoned, the consultation process must be extended by at least 6 months to allow sufficient time for public consultation, given its complexity and far-reaching ramifications. Further, if it is not abandoned, the bill should be split into one for medical use and contained lab and field trials, and the other to regulate commercial release with robust provisions for economic benefit, liability insurance, labelling, environmental protection, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. We're over time, but Steve, go for it. You had a hand up for a while.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Look, my quick question is probably an attempt to summarise your point. You would say that we have, in the course of the last 30 years, by having a cautious approach to GMO, not actually a ban, but a very cautious regulatory approach, locked in the true advantage and shown the wisdom of us leading into that reputation for being a natural and clean green food producer, and we should be very hesitant to throw that away.
Yeah, that's correct. I think the regulation has allowed the organic and our sustainable agriculture industry to develop further and become a point of difference around the world. It's trusted. So yeah, there's a huge risk to all of that work we've done over the last 30 years if we wholesale deregulate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, John, for your presentation today, for joining.
Finally, a question, and going over time to get that question.
Yes. Well, I mean, he had a lot to say. I mean, my oral submission was an addition to my actual submission. So it wasn't anything that I'd actually put into my submission. It was extra stuff. But this, what the people are coming up with here, must be the base of their submissions.
Yeah. It's.
Just think, he was talking about the beeswax. So we mentioned the bees before, and he mentions the beeswax would no longer be organic. And and he started off talking about liability. I mean, that no insurance companies will touch this.
No.
Well, I mean, that tells you a lot, because
yeah, exactly. I mean, who would actually touch the insurance? Yeah.
So that then falls upon the local government, probably, and some areas anyway are already GE free, Northland or the far north and Bay of Plenty, I believe. So that's going to mess up things there too. And he talks about brand New Zealand, and brand New Zealand is clean, green and GE free, and the Fern mark means that. And so that is a label in itself. But the other thing that concerns me is the labelling in the food, because our food, if this bill goes ahead in its current form, we won't be allowed to have our food labelled as to whether it's GE or not.
Yeah.
And that's atrocious. Absolutely. Invasion of people's personal choice. I just wondered if this is an appropriate time to read you. I've got in at Parliament, in the Parliamentary Petitions Committee at the moment, a petition which will be coming out, and the title of which is Halt the Gene Technology Bill and Set Up a Commission of Inquiry. So the request is that the House of Representatives halt the progress of the Gene Technology Bill and instead set up a commission of inquiry into the health and safety of people and the environment on behalf of citizens, to allow time for wider community and stakeholder consultation. And the reason being that Gene Technology Bill fails to follow sound and fair processes by not consulting enough with the public and other stakeholders. There is inadequate consideration of T2T obligations and no requirement to take a precautionary approach to protect people and the environment from the risks of GE contamination. A range of gene editing techniques have been excluded from regulation. Now, that's really important. This means GE products would enter the environment and food supply untested, unregistered, and unlabeled. So the closing date will be the 1st of June because we want to get it in there before the second reading. And so that hopefully in the next couple of days, I'll be able to get that out.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
and we'll
crossed.
be happy to share it.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, let's see our next submitter, Karen Summerhays.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Karen Summerhays joining us. Karen, I can see you've come online. Welcome to the Health Committee. We have you for 5 minutes. Still loading in, or are you there?
No,
there we go.
Excellent. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm talking to you as a home gardener. I use seeds and soils, and I'm a consumer that has comfort that anything that is New Zealand grown, I can be assured that it's GE free. So that's without even having to read the labels. So that's a real asset to this country for ourselves and being able to plant in our gardens and knowing where things come from. It's been well documented that there is in Aotearoa New Zealand a growing distrust of science. And this, in my opinion, is largely due to the commercialisation of research institutes who are paid to arrive at a particular outcome. To hell with the counter science. And as long as they have IP to sell, it is tempting to play down the risks. The precautionary principle is a standard practice in science. And I can't for the life of me think that why we would abandon that in this bill. With regards to the local government input to this bill, unfortunately, it was came to the public right at the time when all local government was on holiday, and that there were no opportunities for deep engagement with local government around how they are impacted by this bill. In my experience as a former regional councillor, I have the Bay of Plenty Regional Council has relied particularly strongly on the precautionary principle, and that's what was their coverall, that was their backstop, to say that they didn't have to engage in the science. So by removing the precautionary principle, it is removing that safeguard for local government, and it just doesn't seem feasible. The other thing that the Regional Council Chief Executive said to me was that they weren't engaging in these types of submissions anymore due to resources and staff numbers. So the only thing that they will engage on is in the RMA and any water bills. So it's really important that this bill gets slowed down, stopped preferably, but slowed down and allow proper consultation with the organisations and agencies that have the mandate for land use. And so yes, that's that. But for me, this bill is sending the message that it's okay for the cowboys to bring out their guns, and it's okay to take pot shots down the street with no consequence should they happen to hit somebody. And New Zealand does have a cowboy attitude, and we only have to think about the Khaleesi virus incident where farmers took things into their own hands. Under the regards to the ethical considerations, the community has been totally left out into the consideration of this bill, and it's important that we create a community ethics committee. It's appalling that all the risk is socialised and remediation had to be paid for by ratepayers and taxpayers. With regard to the medical side of things, I think that that's a little different because humans have the right to be able to say, no, don't put that in my body. Well, mostly they have the right to say that. And so it's a little bit different than something coming to you in your food or in the environment. There are often associated activities that come alongside a GMO, for instance, spraying. And you can only think of the Scion's attempt to create a buster-resistant pine tree that was going to be planted on the whole of the Kaingaroa Plateau and blanket sprayed with buster, and the only thing that would live would be their trees. So those sort of associated activities also need to be seen as part of the picture of a release of GMO into the environment. This bill has the ability to unleash the Kraken and cause unmeasurable harm to existing and future users, land users, and food and consumers of food. There is no containment, and unless we have a strong regulation that protects us against the maverick behaviour and libertarian thinking, that I'm able to do what I want on my land and to hell with who's downstream or who's over the fence. Earlier this week, there was a poll came out, a Curia poll, that said that 48.9% of New Zealanders think New Zealand is heading in the wrong direction. Do you think that this bill might be contributing to that statistic? Thank you very much. My recommendation is to slow down, do this properly, either amend that has no bill. Yes, it's got some faults. It doesn't have an ethics committee, which it absolutely needs. But and if necessary, let's have another Royal Commission. Let's test how we do this and how we go forward. Kia ora, I'll take questions if I have time, if there's any.
Thank you, Karen. You've just run over, but thank you for joining us today.
Kia ora.
For your submission.
Ka
Kia ora.
kite.
Well, I think that's a bit unfortunate that another submission with no questions.
And Karen knows a lot. She's been involved. She was very involved behind the push to get Bay of Plenty GE free. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting commenting on people who I know.
Well, yeah, and see, here's the thing is, I wouldn't have known that she was a retired regional councillor.
No, well, I don't think I did actually.
No.
But anyway, and she started off about IP and selling IP, and I think that this is a big issue that nobody's mentioned before, because one of the things is that the gene editing. So this isn't just about the big main GE crops. This is also about gene editing, where they want scientists to be able to edit something, and then we can stick it out in the environment or in our food or in medicines, whatever. And so that is quite concerning, because there's always a big push for money as soon as you've got big ag, big pharma, whoever involved. So I thought that was an important point. And of course, she mentions the precautionary principle, which actually we all should be mentioning over and over and over and over again, because this is absolute precaution is essential.
Yes.
And she mentioned the pine trees. Now, I was very interested in the pine trees a little while back, because they genetically modified pine trees to grow extra fast. But the problem with them was they weren't very strong. So they were likely to fall over. And were like a pack of Skittles.
So really they ended up growing firewood instead of productive pine.
Well, yes, and what the idea is to really make carbon sinks and have even if we do have pine trees, at least an older pine tree will give off the appropriate oxygen and whatever else. I'm not an expert on climate change, but yeah. So that was something else that nobody else had mentioned. So I thought that was really good too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's get for one more submission since we've got 8 minutes. Donna Pochetti Phillips, who has in the past been candidate on one of our It's in the Ballot shows.
Okay, the next submitter we have is Donna Pochetti Phillips joining us. She's joined us now. Donna, very good to have you here. We have you for 5 minutes, so I will hand that time over to you shortly. Donna, you're in?
Are you there? Can you hear
me? Over to you, Donna.
Okay, thank you. Kia ora, members of the House Select Committee. My name is Donna Pochetti Phillips. I take my written submission as read, and I will highlight why this bill is dangerous and must be rejected. What happens when the government allows genetic modifications to be released into our food, our medicine, and our environment without oversight, without consultation, and without our consent? The bill removes transparency, erases protections, and hands control to corporations. It takes away our right to know what we are eating, what is being tested in our environment, and what risks we are being exposed to. Regulators have repeatedly failed to protect the public from safe technologies. Asbestos, declared safe, now linked to fatal respiratory illnesses. Thalidomide, given to pregnant women, causing severe birth defects. Oxycontin, marketed as low risk, fueling the opioid crisis and killing hundreds of thousands of people. Contaminated polio vaccine infected millions with a cancer-causing virus. COVID-19 vaccine rushed under emergency authorization, bypassing long-term safety studies, leading to unforeseen health impacts and deaths. Now, with genetic modification, are we making the same mistake? Once GMO species are released, they cannot be recalled. Cross-pollination and unintended mutations will have catastrophic consequences. Corporations like Monsanto, now Bayer, patent GMO seeds, enforcing strict contractual agreements that prevent farmers from saving and replanting seeds. These patents force dependency on corporate-controlled seeds, increasing costs and limiting farmer autonomy. Control the seeds, control the food, control the food, control the people. Organic farmers face lawsuits. Monsanto has sued over 140 for accidental contamination. E ki rā. This bill strips Māori of the right to protect our whenua and our whakapapa and violates fundamental protections under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, undermining Māori self-determination, New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, removing informed consent and the right to refuse unwanted interventions, international human rights law, violating principles of environmental sovereignty and indigenous rights. Māori a kaitiaki, our connection to the whenua, our awa, our maunga is part of our whakapapa. Let me be very clear, the government is declaring war on our whakapapa, and I find this unconscionable. The bill removes the right to know, allows changes without consent, and gives more power to the biotech corporations, while keeping the public in the dark. Without labelling, the risks are too high. No right to know. Consumers will lose transparency about whether their food, their medicine or environment contains GMOs. Changes without consent. The government can alter labelling laws without public input, forcing genetic modifications on the public. Biotech control. Corporations gain unchecked power while Māori and local communities lose their ability to reject or regulate GMOs. This is a breach of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the New Zealand Bill of Rights, and the international human rights law. It is a deliberate suppression of information and forced compliance on genetic modification without public consent. This bill is reckless and it's dangerous. You represent us, not corporations, not globalists, but New Zealanders. I urge the committee to restore local decision-making powers over GMOs, ensure communities and councils can determine what's happening in their own region, reject the gene technology bill in its entirety, require full consultation with Māori local councils and the wider community, ensure any future genetic technology proposals undergo independent scientific review, free from corporate and political influence. Do you want to be responsible for a GMO outbreak? If this bill is passed, how will you answer when future generations ask, why did you let this happen? This is our whānau line in the sand, and we say no to this bill. A government that removes transparency, forces compliance, and hands unchecked power to corporations is not democratic. It is tyrannical. This bill is the foundation of corporate fascism, and we will not stand for it. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Donna. Thank you. Thanks for your comments there. I must say, yes, we do represent the people, not the globalists.
That's not what your bill says.
This isn't
That's not what your
intended
bill
to.
says.
Hold on. Look, you made a comment here about how Monsanto doesn't allow farmers to collect their seeds or use their seeds. That's definitely not what this bill's intention is. If organics or whatever it may be wants to continue doing as they do, but we're not going to hand those powers over to corporations.
Well, at the moment, you're letting the genie out and there's no calling back.
It's a big accusation to make, though, and it's certainly not what.
Well, I hold to that. Look at COVID. Look at COVID-19. Look at COVID-19. My father died of that vaccine, so yeah, I understand what gene technology can do. It kills.
Yeah, and you can direct those criticisms at Jacinda Ardern and the Labor government. But very good to have you here, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that sounded like a...
That was dirty play, sending it over to Jacinda and the previous government, because the national government would have been exactly the same.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, not exactly the same. Probably worse.
Well, yes, they were even considering making vaccines compulsory for everybody, not just, certain.
Yeah, and also like say, oh no, you can't have working for families if you don't sit there and vaccinate your kids.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that.
That was really dirty. And I actually did a little section in my written submission, and one of the things I had is the bill will result in what can be considered biocolonialism, where organisms are owned, and that is quite a concern, really. I also had incorporation of Maori values. There is a tapu nature around seeds. There's growing recognition that incorporating Maori values in national regulation is key to a more balanced integration of biotechnologies in both cultural and socially economic contexts. The bill will not fully meet Maori aspirations for partnership in decision making and protection of their rights and interests under the Treaty of Waitangi. So, I put a few other things in there, but we're probably running out of time, are we?
2 minutes.
And of course she mentioned asbestos and thalidomide, and I mentioned a few things in my like microorganisms and stuff in my oral submission. And she mentioned patents. Now, there have been huge numbers of Indian farmers who have committed suicide because they bought into the GE story. They bought the GE seeds and the GE chemicals, and then when they ran out of money, they couldn't grow crops because the cotton they were growing cotton could only be, now how do you put this, given the seeds didn't reproduce, so they couldn't use seeds from the previous year. And apparently vast numbers of them have committed suicide by drinking the chemicals that were supposed to go on the plants. Absolutely tragic. So GE isn't a success. It's just that we have business pushing to make money out of something, and this is a something that they think they can make money out of.
Oh, thank you for joining us for the first hour again, and providing your knowledge and expertise and your ability to recap things at super high rates. It feels like if we haven't got Laura here this week, we'll get Lisa to jump in.
Oh dear. Well, yes, if it was on a topic I didn't know anything about, it might be more difficult.
Okay, well, was it take over a quick break, and we'll be back for the next hour with Soraya.
Parliament's buzzing, it's time to get loud. Under the dome where decisions are proud, voices clash, echo through the halls. Policies rise as the gavel falls. Bills on the table, debates in the air. Legislation crafted with care. Voices of the people, voices of the streets, echo in chambers where the leaders meet. Tick-tock, the order paper's high. Debate and discuss changes what we've got. Every word counts, every vote too. New Zealand Parliament, this one's for you. For you. Dynamic urban rhythm in the flow. Every law passed a seed we sow. From the beehive to the urban beat, listen as our politicians greet. Chairs are filled, faces stern. Back and forth, it's a lesson to learn. Parties collide, but the aim is clear. A stronger future, year after year. Tick-tock, the order paper's high. Debate and discuss changes what we've got. Every word counts, every vote too. New Zealand Parliament, this one's for you. For you. This one's for you.
And welcome back for hour two. Soraya, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Going good, going good. Get to have a different person to be panelist for this week.
Yep.
Yeah, so how's things up your way and what's the weather like? It's Otaki where you live?
Yep, so halfway between Otaki and Levin. So we've had rain, which is great because we're in a drought. So Michael's all happy because there's been rain and the grass is going to grow again.
Yeah.
Not so great for drying and washing.
Oh, yeah. We definitely all can talk about the washing one. Now, I want to ask, which side of the proposed new electoral boundaries are you on? Are you going to be a Kapiti electorate voter or a Rangitikei electorate voter?
I haven't actually checked. The envelope's sitting on the table and I haven't opened it.
Oh, is this the enrolment update things?
Yeah.
I must be seeing the pair box. Are you north? I'm about to head actually on the map at the moment.
So show me on the map. So we're we're sort of halfway between Otaki and Levin. So
got a map here. So the good question is: are you south of Forest Lakes or north of Forest Lakes?
North of Forest Lakes, I think.
Okay, so north of Aitken Road.
Yeah, so we're like on the Manukau Village side. So we're just opposite Manukau Village. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
you're
so we used
from David and Diane.
Yeah, so we used to live in Tammy Parati Street, which is all of Manukau's named for the earliest Maori members of Parliament. So
I actually never clicked on that.
Yeah. So
that makes so much sense of all their all their names seem to be like double named.
Yeah, it takes people a while, you have to spell it out because you can't write it all. Nobody knows what you're talking about when you try and say the name of the street because it's, yeah. So it was fun for a few years living there on the top of the hill, and now we're back on Michael's family farm.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So how far away from Kirkwood's Cafe is it?
Now, where's that?
Kirkwood's Cafe is opposite the underpass. Two doors up from Jeff Fox's place.
Okay, we're probably 2 minutes walk.
Okay.
So, yeah. So there used to be a cafe on the corner. I'm not sure because it changed hands like 3 times since I've been here. So Michael knows it better than me. So it's just at the start of Gleeson Road, there was a cafe. So
I know. Oh, yes. Oh, Quarter Acre, yes, which used to actually be on the corner of Buller Road back in the day. Buller Road, up in Levin, when it was called Stefan's, I think it was.
Yeah, Michael used to go there all the time.
Oh yeah, oh heck, some of the good memories. I actually remember when they put in the new layout for Gleeson Road, and I remember there was the big push from Amy and Colin Sue to get the speed limit dropped to 80 k's.
Yep.
Yeah, which I don't think they own the business anymore. I think they've moved on, but they had Brown Acres because it's changed names. Yeah,
it has. I think Colin's. Because we still have the Sue's growing around here. But yeah, one of the main businesses has changed hands.
Yeah. Oh, well, it just shows how small the community is. And Manukau Primary School was one of the primary schools Granddad was a principal of. Back when my dad was like little, this is before he turned 5. And this is something that's going to make you laugh. So Granddad went to Levin to buy a TV in 1963. Yeah. And he went to buy 2 TVs, one for himself, one for his mother. The salesperson would not sell him the second TV. Why do you need 2 TVs? I mean, gotta be honest, there was only one TV channel back then. I mean, I do believe the TVs, you could tune into 9 channels, but there was only one channel to tune into, unless you're in Kaikoura, where you could tune into 2.
Yeah, I remember TVs when there were 2 channels. So there was Channel 1 and Channel 2, obviously great names. So that's my earliest. But yeah, it was really restrictive of what you could buy, wasn't it? Because you had to go on a list to be able to buy a car as well.
Yeah, and so he went and bought he managed to buy the TV for my great-grandmother, and then she tried to refuse to accept the delivery. So not only went for all this hassle about the TV, and my dad was there, and my dad was a little kid at the time as well, and like having this incinerator, why do you need to buy 2 TVs? and then I find out from Grandma quite a number of years later, oh no, there was issues trying to get it delivered as well, because she's going, I never ordered a TV. No, take it back.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, his granddad already paid for him, and he was on a principal's teacher's salary, and he was max contributing to his super, considering that super is still paying Grandma's retirement now.
Yeah, things have changed so much. Now we have KiwiSaver, and the markets have dropped, and everybody's lost heaps of money on their KiwiSavers and don't want to look at it at the moment.
Oh, I haven't. Thanks for reminding me on that one.
Sorry. I tried to go through, because I tried to go, well, can we just because I don't have one, Michael has one, and I'm trying to go through and go, can we de-invest from any GMO investments and any weapons and all that sort of stuff? Can we like ethically invest? And it's like, no, invest in until you have $50,000 plus in there.
Oh.
And even then it's like, you've got to do all this paperwork, which,
what a pain in the butt.
So it's really interesting, isn't it, that you can't just ethically invest and choose, like, can we please avoid these industries?
Oh, and then we've got a bill in Parliament at the moment that is trying to stop banks from being able to do that, which would be the flow-on effect, would be KiwiSaver providers. Considering, I mean, my KiwiSaver provider is the Bank of New Zealand. So, at the moment, my flatmate does work for Sharesies, and we probably will need to actually talk to him to see what can and can't be done on that one, to see if they can give me we possibly, you could have the approach of no GMOs or something like that.
Yeah.
We need to get Brad on the show one day.
And no weapons. Like, can I just not invest in weapons research and GMOs? That would be great. Yeah. So until that's available, I'm not investing in it. So I still have money in a savings account. So I'm really happy about the new banking bill, where they protect savings if your bank goes under, because that's coming out in July, I think, isn't it?
I thought we kind of had that anyway.
I think John Key reversed it.
Oh, yeah, because that was like that when I was a kid. Yeah. It was like that. Yeah, and if you want to be really safe, the best bank to actually bank in New Zealand probably would be Rabobank for that one, because they only invest in domestic, domestic investments. They don't invest on the international exchange, and mainly in agriculture, ironically. So actually, I wonder how Rabobank would actually take with this bill.
Yeah, there's really interesting things with banks, because over my lifetime, so many like building societies and everything have gone under, and it's been really stressful for people. So people don't trust different institutions. Yeah. Because like I said, well, why can't we have KiwiSaver, where actually you invest in like local things, like you loan money for farmers to get into first farms and things like that. Yeah. And it's like, it's not even possible. Because in Australia, there's this collective called Oro Group, I think it is, something like that. And you can invest in that, and it helps regenerative and organic farmers get into farms. So those sorts of things I quite like. We're ethically investing.
Okay, let's get to Jenny Easton, who was a little bit missing earlier, but they managed to get her back.
Okay. That was when they jumped mine ahead.
Yes.
Yep. I saw the note there. Very good to have Jenny Easton back in the mix. Jenny, welcome back to the Health Committee. We have you here. We'll pop up in a moment. All right, we have you off mute and ready to go, Jenny. Welcome. We have you for 5 minutes. Thank you.
When do we get there?
Well, cut her off at the end anyway.
Here
we go, Jenny, over to you. Thank you. We can't hear you, sorry, Jenny. Connect into audio. Yeah, bear with it.
I had the same thing, because apparently Zoom doesn't work on the new M2 chip.
Oh.
So,
would that be all right?
Let's do that, because we still can't get audio through there. Do we want to do that now, Clark, or do we want to move on to the next presenter?
Move to the next person.
Okay.
Okay, so unfortunately, not much success with Jenny. Valentina Danica.
Okay.
We'll go to Valentina Danica, who will be joining us for 5 minutes. Valentina, welcome to the Health Committee. Very good to have you here. We have you for 5 minutes. I'll hand it to you now. Thank you.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
We've got you.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Associate Professor in Public Policy, but I wish to clarify that I speak in personal capacity. However, my talk draws on my independent and ongoing research project where I investigate how genome engineering biotechnologies have been represented in the public space since 2017. Compared to my submission, this talk draws on an extended research pool. As I said, it's ongoing, and now I'm drawing on a corpus of 125 media items and ministerial advisory reports published up to December 2024. I do wish to speak in opposition of the bill on 2 grounds. Although in principle, I'm open towards revising the current legal framework, but that's not the right way to go about it. And first, my first reason is that my findings show that over the past 8 years at least, if not more, New Zealanders have not been given a fair chance to learn and hear in the public space the views of a genuinely wide range of actors, but also relevant disciplines, not just genetics. And we need to hear more on a highly diverse range of applications, as this technology is very heterogeneous. Nor could the public hear a broad range of perspectives also on non-scientific aspects, particularly the ethical, equity, economic power, or cultural implications of deregulating the use of genome-engineered organisms. We have only heard from a vested interest geneticist, who some people misleadingly refer to as the entire scientific community in this country. Unfortunately, what adds to the problem is that the poor quality science journalism in this country and also the inadequate policy analytic work by some organizations have also contributed to a poor quality of public monologues. And these were plagued by both types of misinformation distinguished in the literature. You can call it misinformation, lumping, whatever, miscommunications, but the effect on the public and the law is the same. So what we see, what I discovered is that there were many miscommunications plagued by both types of misinformation, as I said, noted in the literature, errors of judgment and errors of fact. The latter also include omissions, misrepresentations, and falsehoods. And I was quite shocked by my findings to see that many of these originate also in the views of vested interest scientists, not only the usual suspects of commercial actors and so on. So I am concerned that some miscommunications have made their way into the bill, from the preamble also to the so-called risk proportionate framework. These miscommunications have affected several types of topics, including representations of science, discussions on regulatory approaches in New Zealand and overseas, and aspects regarding any real benefits and the commercialization of various products globally. So the question is New Zealand moving from evidence-based to misinformation-based policy making? Second, I oppose the bill because of substance, because it is fundamentally flawed in the way it tries to address risks. The bill does not properly deal with scientific uncertainties that can be neither quantified nor expressed qualitatively. The only way to safely regulate and scientifically regulate these technologies and their applications is based on the overarching interpretation of the precautionary principle. Finally, the proposed bill denies the democratic right of society to regulate technologies based on values too, and which are reflected in the decision criteria. And we do this for all types of policy domains: economic policy, education policy, social policy. These are value-driven. So why should these particular technologies be exclusively regulated by monodisciplinary technocrats? And to add insult over injury, there has been a failure of ethical behavior by allowing vested interest scientists to be members of the monodisciplinary technical advisory group. And the only place for these people, and there is a place for them, but the place is in the industry advisory group. So in my view, current arrangements are tantamount to possible self-regulation and a rather symbolic law. Thank you for your time, for hearing me, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. We've got time for one question. Steve.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on that that last point. In terms of the structure of the advice that we should be receiving as a committee, are you suggesting that we need a more independent advisory group, and that the current advice that's group that's been set up for the ministries is somewhat weighted to a particular perspective in your view, without casting aspersions on individual scientists?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Thank you. No, absolutely. New Zealand has brilliant independent geneticists, but so far some people have preferred not to listen to them. They have published internationally. They have even developed methods like PCR to actually test whether new organisms are truly organisms are gene edited or natural. So we have high quality independent geneticists, and we also need multidisciplinary advice. You need advice from legal experts, from public policy experts, from ethics, from cultural aspects. I mean, again, why should this be? Why should politicians be advised only by monodisciplinary scientists? For all other technologies, we have multidisciplinary approaches, and this is a huge flaw which has to be fixed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your submission. We're over time, so.
So your 2 cents were from that submission.
Well, I really liked it, and I think that she's really right. So you know what vested interests are?
Yes.
So the vested interests would be people that are benefiting from the policy that they are in turn creating, which in a society that has antitrust, you wouldn't have. But at the same time, you do want to consider people that have skin in the game. You don't want to exclude people that have a knowledge of a system and who are going to benefit or lose from a system being in place. My only criticism with her would be that she doesn't include farmers, which in a lot of terms are the users of the product. And what implications does it have for farmers? What implications does it have for consumers? What, like I saw with the previous, with you and Lisa commenting on the man producing like organic skincare products. There are heaps of New Zealand skincare products that are organic, or vitamin products and things like that. These are all end user issues, and they're also producer issues, and producers have been completely excluded. So apparently several big farming groups, including Beef and Lamb, who I didn't really like their submission, and Federated Farmers and things, asked for an extension and asked for a longer time period to evaluate this. And apparently National said no. And apparently they said that they wanted to not have it running into an election year, and they're trying to just jam it through and have the seeds available in January. And it's sort of like, you're not listening to the people, and you're sort of almost setting up a position where you don't really want to hear alternative viewpoints or more balanced viewpoints. I think we've had even several submitters from overseas who have said, well, we've had this technology here, or I've lost my farm because I got sued because my farm got contaminated. Then I lost my farm for growing seeds without a license. And I tried to defend myself, saying you contaminated me. And they said, no, you stole our property, our intellectual property. And now you've lost a family farmer. So it is a really difficult situation. And I do think that they have really narrowly created a select group of people. And amongst those haven't actually been people on the land who are farming. And you might even consider like Kohanga Seeds or places like that, which have been working a long period of time to save Indigenous seeds and things like that, and the implications for them.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get on to. I think they finally managed. Did they end up bringing back? No, they haven't ended up bringing back Jenny.
Jenny. Like, I was so panicked because I was like trying to download it onto my Zoom onto my phone in case I couldn't get it to work on my thing, and my dog was crying in the background. So I was like, oh, please don't let me lose my spot. Like, I hope Jenny gets the chance to talk.
Okay, Nicola. What does it say there? Nicola Scholes, I think that is.
Thank you, and appreciate your time. Okay, Clark, so we're back to Jenny, or are we on to our next submitter, Nicola Scholes?
We'll go to Nicola and then return to Jenny maybe after Nicola.
Okay, next up we have Nicola Scholes joining us for 5 minutes. Nicola, very good to have you here. We have you here for 5 minutes. I will hand that time over to you now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Firstly, I gather that you have read my written part, and I take that as read. And thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to talk in person. I consider this to be a vital issue, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word. It really is, in my opinion, life and death. Firstly, a bit about me. I have worked in a number of industries over a number of years, most notably the natural health industry, pharmaceuticals, and nutraceuticals. I have a science background with an honours degree in chemistry, backed up with a sub-major in microbiology, and I have about 25 years of experience in the food and dairy industry. For the past 8 years and a bit, as a result of the job that I have, I've visited a great number of laboratories around New Zealand, looking at the work they do. I'm familiar with the principles of DNA sequencing, CRISPR, and PCR. But let me emphasize I'm here today in my personal capacity, on my day off, in my own time, and the views I express are mine alone. However, that said, the organisation I work for has as our guiding principle protecting the health and wealth of New Zealand. And in the past 8 years, I've taken that very much to heart. Note that we are protecting, not advancing, not furthering, and certainly not risking the health and wealth of New Zealand. So what I want to say today about is that releasing genetically modified organisms into the environment is risky. And I feel that the bill does not sufficiently address all these risks. I know very little about medical research and the use of gene editing for medical purposes, so I'm not really going to talk about that aspect. I think that should potentially be in a separate bill all of its own. I appreciate the uses and applications of producing live, whole, attenuated viruses and bacteria for use as vaccination agents, but I'm not so sure about any other genetically modified organisms or their products for use as medical treatment. I'll let the other medical people talk about that. They know much more than I do. So as I said, my focus is about the agricultural industry of New Zealand. I joined the submissions, or this group earlier on, and I've heard some very compelling arguments about protecting the agricultural industry of New Zealand. I'm of the same opinion in that. There was a promotional video that Christopher Luxon and Judith Collins presented, and Judith Collins made the comment something along the lines of, well, Australia are doing it, so we should too. I'm sorry, I do not find that a compelling argument. Australia's economy is not based on the agriculture and the agricultural exports to nearly the same extent as New Zealand's. However, one of the ways in which I think it is good to follow what other countries are doing is to follow those countries that do not allow the import or cultivation of GMO crops. For example, Switzerland. Switzerland has a ban on cultivation of GM crops and has in place very strict rules regarding the import and use of GMO food. Other countries in the EU have similar regulations. Anyway, going back to protecting the health and wealth of New Zealand, Google tells me that our agricultural sector produces 40% of New Zealand's merchandise exports. I have to say, I thought it was more, but I guess that's just because I'm in that industry. So I thought, obviously we're the most important, we're the best, but never mind. I was wrong. Also, according to Google, New Zealand's food and fiber exports reached $57.4 billion. I think we can agree that that is a significant figure. I'm not sure what part of the GDP it is, but it's likely to be significant. So the thrust of my argument is if we allow the breeding of pest-resistant and disease-resistant crops through the means of genetic modification, it puts all of that at risk. New Zealand's image as a nuclear-free, clean and green country, I'm sure, has contributed significantly to that $57.4 million.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you very much. We're at time now, but I really do appreciate you coming and presenting to the committee.
Another submission that sits down there runs out of time.
She's obviously really well educated, and it's really distressing to see Sam just cutting everybody off. And yet you see him with like Bill Rolleston or something like that, and he gets extra time. But to clarify, Australia, if we're addressing Australia, Australia's GMO crops are 0.4% of 0.2% of their agricultural land as of 2019. So it's not a big amount, and they're annuals. So they are not like ryegrass that's just going to interbreed with native grasses. They're like it's canola and cotton that, as of 2019, accounts for 0.2% of Australian grass, GMO crops. So it's not a huge amount in Australia that's being grown under GMO. And what is also really interesting is Australia is the world's largest organic producer. So when we compare New Zealand to Australia, New Zealand, we have a lot of people that are non-certified GMO, where they just don't want to go through the GMO certification process because it's expensive and it's like a lot of stress. And because we don't like regulations and we don't like rules. So if you go out of sort of one sort of farming that has a lot of rules, you don't necessarily want to go into another sort of farming that has a lot of rules. But a lot of people, I think one of your panelists last week and Michael himself are like almost organic farmers, but they just aren't certified. But Australia has a massive landmass, and they also are the world's biggest organic producer. And so if we're looking at our place in the market, we're really risking it to turn around and go, well, we know that China and Asia and the Middle East really preferred organic, but we're just not going to do it. And we're going to try and compete with Russia that's GMO free, trying to go organic, and Australia that's the world's biggest organic producer. We're just basically going to cut our market off. So I think it's really amazing, and I wish they'd asked a few more questions.
Yeah. Okay, well, the next submitter is Willie White.
Okay.
Oh, no. I think they found Jenny.
Oh.
I think they have found Jenny. We'll see if they have found Jenny.
Restream is so much easier than Zoom. I don't know why they don't use that.
Oh, I don't know. There are some things Restream's better on, but there are some things where Zoom is better, particularly if you've got numbers of people, whereas we can only go up to 10. Yeah. Okay, let's...
See you today. Thank you. Okay, after this, I understand we are having a phone call with Jenny Easton, so I'll let the clerks connect to that now. Thank you.
Hello, Jenny here.
Jenny, Sam Uppendale here from the Health Committee. Very good to have you. We've got you for 5 minutes and good to connect. Thank you. Your time.
Oh, okay. Right, I'll just go back to my computer. I thought I'd lost it.
Who knows what's happening at the moment? At least we're looking at what Duncan Webb's doing, which I don't know why he's sitting in Wellington.
Yes. Go for it.
It's actually disconcerting watching the panelists when you're presenting. Sam.
Yeah.
Jenny, are you able to hear us? Are you able to make your submission?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm ready to speak. I just can't. Can I speak on the phone then?
Yes, absolutely.
That's the intention. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Right. Look, can you hear me then on the phone?
Yes.
Yes. Right. I'm sorry that I couldn't get on the screen. I'm Jenny Easton. I'm a retired local government resource scientist with field work experience in hazardous substance and contaminated sites. And I'd like to expand on my written submission and the 2 recommendations I made. My professional experience with collecting redundant agrochemicals and contaminated site investigations was not unique to the region I worked in. We collaborated with other regional council staff and the company undertaking the collections and heard horror stories from everyone involved. It really brought home that relying on self-regulation of hazardous substances is extremely dangerous for human health and natural environment. And I want to emphasise that these people paid for the pesticides and they knew what weeds or insects would be killed and they could read the warnings on the labels. And yet, when it came to safe storage and disposal of many of them were irresponsible. And the substances included oxidising agents, which will spontaneously catch fire if you drop the container, ecotoxic and human toxic, plus banned pesticides. And school science labs also had problems, again, with people in charge who should have known what to do. Our council also had experience with meth houses, a dangerous activity often carried out on rental properties with huge clean-up costs and insurance implications. And I can see similar situations if gene tech was being carried out in the garage or spare room with imported do-it-yourself kits and things got out of hand or they lost interest. My first recommendation is that all activities involved in gene technology with no exempt categories should be included. It should be carried out inside a certified containment facility. And this is to ensure controlled purchase and storage of the reagents, safe handling of the hazardous substances and the tools used, and the regulators able to validate the outcome of the experiments before release. I support Professor Jack Heinemann's recommendations that the alternative process-based options would be more effective and affordable than what's proposed. And these options would streamline compliance for the work done in certified containment facilities. I also support a submission that details and references all the recorded unintended consequences and complexities from this involving science. We need to monitor and control this industry wisely to protect future generations of people, our native flora and fauna, and not allow mistakes that could, for example, create antibiotic-resistant diseases. Oversight is my other concern. It's extremely unlikely that a government minister can be up to date with the science, and that is why we need a professional, independent regulator and agency that's adequately funded and not subject to general policy directions or other interference from the minister.
I'll just jump in there, Jenny.
Cycles, lobbying from sectors, and rotating ministers can provide the long-term security.
Excuse me, please,
finally,
Jenny. Sorry, I'm sorry. We're over time, so I'm going to have to stop it here. But just to say that there is an independent regulator and they are not subject to ministerial or government pressure. But thank you very much for joining us today, and I'm able to get your submission through. Thank you.
Sounded like she was a horse race announcer speech. She was reading that submission act.
Yeah, she was actually well educated in this thing. And it's like she's the person that we should be getting to talk, and he cut her off. And I have concerns about our regulators. I can't remember which regulator it is. I know one of them was for rights and seeds. He used to be the head of rights and seeds, and he was the guy that oversaw rights and seeds being sold offshore. I don't necessarily trust him to be the head of the EPA. I'd rather have like Mike Joy or somebody like that, head of the EPA. And he used to live around here too. So, like you want somebody that's really a science-based person, not a sales
rep.
And he cut her off before she could even have that discussion about what sort of quality of person that you should be listing as head of this. And I thought that there is a real issue with self-regulation and things like that, because people obviously they don't want to show things on their farm if they've gone wrong. And so self-regulation, there's a whole contamination sort of list that, Jack in charge would be great, actually. They won't never do it, though, not this government.
No. You'll need to have a Labour government right at the end of the term issue a 5-year contract they can't sack.
Yeah. Well, even actually, to be honest, if you're looking at it from a libertarian point of view, I disagree with Lisa that there's a really great article that's, I think, from about 2007, how food became a casualty of biotechnology's promise. And it actually goes through how so much public funds are redirected into research, but then the research is privately owned. And so if you're a libertarian, you don't like that. You don't want publicly funded research anyway, because you don't even want publicly funded roads, but the extreme libertarians, but then really don't want publicly funded research that then is privately owned, because then what benefit is it for the community if the scientists or a private company owns the research that the public have had to pay for? So it's a little bit awkward. But yeah, no, I wish we'd heard more from her, and she was obviously quite, they hadn't been very clear with her on the phone. That
No, I think there's a lot of things they could have done better there.
Sam is doing, I really want to like him. He seems...
you want to like him, but he's not doing a good job to make you like him.
Yeah, he's cutting people off and he's arguing with people, and they're already under duress and only have 5 minutes, and it's just, and there's technical issues, which I have myself. So yeah, it sort of adds to the feeling that we're not being heard, and that's not a great way for the primary export industry that's going to be affected by this legislation to really feel about food, which is like a basic human right, is the access to food, clean water and food.
Yeah. Okay. Now, next up, we've got Willie White.
Okay.
Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, no jumping around.
Very much. Next up, if I'm correct, we have Willie White. Willie, thank you for joining us very soon. And just to note to members that we are running a fair bit over time, so I will be enforcing the time limits on everyone. So that may result in no questions, but it is what it is. Willie, very good to have you here, mate. Thank you. We've got you here for 5 minutes. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've got a large-scale and thriving natural farming business, a young family, and a multitude of commitments to various communities that I'm a part of. So it's not insignificant that, given time is always not necessarily on my side, it's not insignificant that I've been motivated to speak here today and to submit via written application. Look, this bill to me there's a number of really serious concerns I have around it. The way I see it is that, and if you'll excuse it, I'll just be focusing largely on the agricultural side of things. I think as New Zealand food producers, we hold a really unique advantage in the world, and it seems to me that any talk around just wanting to be put on the same level as some of our competitors, I don't know, my simple worldview, it seems to me that we're bringing ourselves down to their level, because I think our natural advantage is really clear. I'm exasperated that there's been no consideration here to cost-benefit analysis or market or trade implications. Yeah, I really support a lot of the industry guidance in terms of recommendations around making sure that this is included in the bill. You know, listening to the you know, the people that effectively are owning this bill, you know, a few things stood out to me. Quite a few questions they had no understanding of the you know, the question, which I thought was interesting. Very much, it's clearly been modelled on Australia's bill, and given you know, the pretty significant difference in our kind of macro sort of export settings. Again, I question why we wouldn't be at least running a more unique and New Zealand focused lens over some of the potential issues. Yeah, again, interesting that there's no ethics component to the bill. I would have thought that that would have to be front and centre. But yeah, I think, you know, we all know that, you know, as any exporter of food in New Zealand, you have to declare that you're GMO free. We know there's value in our GMO free status. You know, Fonterra is part of the non-GMO project. You know, yeah, to me it's significant. I think we really risk our reputation here, and again, I believe that any benefits that come to this country will be directed towards yeah, industry as opposed to farmer, and the farmer will be the one that pays. So yeah, that's really all I've got to say. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you very much for your submission today, and very much appreciate you taking the time. And all the best to you and your family. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Okay.
And did we not have time for questions?
He wasn't 5 minutes, was he?
No, because he never got cut off.
Yeah, like, anyway, he raises a really good point. It's actually going to be put onto farmers, the cost of contamination. It's not put on the people that are actually introducing it. It's not put onto the producers. It's put onto the thing. And we've heard a lot, I think, over the last 2 live streams about can there be coexistence? What about contamination? And where you have contamination, you can't have coexistence. And the liability to get rid of it is put on farmers. And that's what happened in the US with that Scots Triffid grass. They just basically walked away, and the farmers were left with the bill of trying to, and the taxpayers of the county, and all of the environmentalists, which I sort of lean towards myself, they're sort of in great distress that this sort of perennial has been introduced to the ecosystem that's destroying natural, like indigenous life forms, basically, because the Roundup Ready interbreeds with the native grasses, and then they take on the Roundup Ready characteristic. And so basically you've destroyed the genetic integrity of the native grass. And that's what farmers are facing, that they're sort of left with this contamination issue, and this bill completely ignores it. And I think Willie was really right, and poor thing that they just cut him off, and he left plenty of time for questions, and they don't want to even talk to farmers. And why is that?
I think that's more an indictment on Sam himself, but yes. Okay, now next up, I don't think the name matches up, because the name that comes up here is free down the list, but let's sit there and see what shenanigans comes up.
Okay.
Next
Maybe
up,
it's a
we
group.
have Tony Pitt. Tony joining us for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, me and Maureen are not here yet, so we will promote Philippa.
Philippa, excellent. Philippa Jamieson, welcome to the Health Committee. We have you for 5 minutes. I'll hand that time to you now. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Philippa Jamieson tōku ikua, no poti poti aho, Dunedin. I'm a writer, editor, home gardener, organic advocate and celebrant, and I've been discussing, researching, writing, editing and publishing articles about GE for about 25 years. I'm completely opposed to the bill, and I urge the committee to reject it. Keep the Has No Act, it's robust and precautionary, has stood us in good stead to avoid the adverse effects that we've seen overseas. However, if the bill does progress in any form, here are just some of my recommendations. 1, the precautionary principle must be included. 2, the purpose of the legislation must include prevention of adverse effects, not just management of them. 3, require the regulator to consider the effects of gene technologies used in combination with other novel technologies, including AI, nanotechnology, synthetic biology, and other potential future technologies. It's vital we act with caution and consider the potential combined effects of these. 4, Create a community ethics committee and require the regulator to consider ethics. 5. The bill sidelines Māori. It needs to recognise not just Māori relationships with native taonga species, but with all of the natural world. Strengthen the power of the Māori Advisory Group to at least have the power of veto, and include provisions in the submission, from the submissions and feedback of Māori such as Te Waka Kaiora, National Māori Organics Authority, and Ngā Toki Whakarururanga. They've both submitted. 6. The risk tiers in the bill are not risk proportionate. Remove the exempt and non-notified risk tiers. Otherwise, we could have biohackers using CRISPR in the garage next door to you, microorganisms being released with who knows what effects, or the school science class could be experimenting. Airborne GE pesticides or supermarket produce sprays would be invisible. People wouldn't have the choice to avoid them. Because of the known and unknown risks, all processes and products using genetic engineering must be registered and regulated. That's probably my most number one point. This includes gene editing and gene silencing techniques and products thereof. All gene editing has off-target and unintended effects. They must only be used in certified containment facilities. This includes the disposal of waste products or unsuccessful experiments. 7. Include liability provisions that ensure the users of GE are financially liable for any adverse effects arising from their use of gene technologies. 8. Delete parts of the bill that take away local government's right and ability to determine GE policies for their territories. 9. Remove parts of the bill that would allow the regulator to approve a GE process or product that has been approved in 2 or more countries overseas. New Zealand legislation needs to take into account Te Tiriti o Waitangi, our unique environment, biosecurity, culture, clean green image, and high dependence on primary production. 10. The Technical Advisory Group. Participants must be independent and multidisciplinary, as previous submitter Valentina Denica said. 11. Coexistence is impossible. GE ryegrass or clover has not been used in farming systems anywhere overseas. They would inevitably spread, and with unknown effects on our ecosystems and farming systems, putting our flora and fauna and primary producers at risk. Consumers don't want it, farmers would lose market access, keep New Zealand, our GE-free advantage, and promote it. Thank you. Welcome to have questions.
Thank you, Philippa. I really appreciate you taking the time to submit and for all of those action points and suggestions. Have a good day. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Submission. I'm ready for questions. Thank you. That's all our time. Goodbye. Well, put it this way. Sam Uffendell, the new host of the TV show The Weakest Link, Tauranga City Council edition.
Great job.
But basically, he's behaving like Anne Robinson on the Weakest Link at the moment.
I can't remember the show I'm thinking of, but you know, whether you basically get dismissed. Was it the billionaires one?
Oh,
where
The
they basically
Apprentice.
said goodbye. Yeah, yeah.
And which apprentice do you prefer better? Donald Trump or Lord Alan Sugar?
No, none of the above.
Oh, Martha Stewart. She did an apprentice show one time.
Well, at least she can like grow things and make things and do things. Like none of the others actually do anything. Even if she pays other people to do it, she at least has a good eye. She's actually been to prison, not threatened to be to prison, so I guess that's better.
So commentary on Philippa's bill.
Oh, she was brilliant. I think she summed it up really well. I really loved it and did a much better job of summarising than me. No wonder she's a writer, because she got all of her points in really quickly, even though Sam cut her off. And she's obviously really passionate about it, which means she's actually the sort of science writer that we want to be talking about these products, because she's been studying it for 20 years. She's not going to be naive. She's not going to be tricked by vested interests. I think she was great. Yeah.
Here's a good one of what Kiwi-Birb has had to say. Me, when I want the door-to-door salesman to leave my property. I think we usually do that also to the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons, I think, depending which part of the world you're in. A little bit hard for me because I actually know the local Jehovah's Witness branch and they spend money at my business. But we usually don't talk religion. We usually actually have a general catch-up.
Well, I won't be. No, I won't be. But no, I thought she was great. There are so many great things, and it seems to be like a pattern. One of the things I noticed, actually, going back to the vested interest, all of the people that are like the farmers, the writers, the anti-GMO, the scientists who are anti this are actually declaring their interest up front, so the committee knows who they are. But one of the things I notice is like other people that have vested interest, even beef and lamb, we know that they've actually invested the farmers' levy into GMO rye and clover, even though farmers actually don't want it. They have not declared we have a vested interest because we've invested farmers' levy in it and we don't want this to lose money. And surely, like, I think even some of the people who have submitted have even been on the advisory board. I'm not sure, but it is a little bit stressful that I think that maybe one of the reforms we could be recommending is that you should have to declare your interest.
Especially if you've been on an advisory board.
Yeah, and so like Mr. Rolliston, he's a very clever man, and I'm not saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he declares himself as a farmer, but he's more of a scientist, and so he actually runs labs, and so when that's not clear to the public, they sort of think they're listening to a farmer, and that's a little bit confusing, and I don't think it's sort of fair. And you sort of, I'm not comfortable with it. Let's just say that.
Okay, let's go to Lisa, or Lisa Ura, as we already know.
Okay.
All right, next up we have Lisa Ura.
So we're swapped.
Lisa, we have you for 5 minutes. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I totally support everything that Philippa Jamison said. And thank you for reading my submission. I'd like to cover some issues that I did not address in it. Science is an unfolding story. There are lots of unknowns in science, but we really hear much about them. By the latest estimates, the human body is thought to comprise of at least 37 trillion cells. Science has no idea what over 30% of the proteins in the human body do. So genetic engineers and those doing gene editing cannot tell with certainty what their food might do to the human body. So how will our bodies react to a future of genetically modified food? In 2003, I was flying home from Melbourne and found myself sitting next to Andrew Ferrier, the new CEO of Fonterra. After an initial chat about our jobs, mine being the owner of Lisa's Hummus, and also our sons played ice hockey, then we ended up talking about genetic engineering for 3 hours. Andrew listened very respectfully and showed increasing interest, especially when I explained that the human gut is designed to digest what nature provides for us, and our body's response to artificially made food in the lab is entirely unknown. Now, my business was built on ethical interest, health food, and GM-free, and the bottles were labelled as GM-free, which was very popular. So anyway, a few years later, I was at a Westpac cocktail party, and Andrew approached me and said, Lisa, I want you to know we have not let GE out of the lab. So for all those years he was at Fonterra, that was their policy, keep it in the lab. Andrew had understood the complexity of the interaction of food and the human microbiome. The management at Fonterra may have changed, but today they use the non-GMO project to export GE-free milk to the USA. Non-GMO is a marketing tool for premium products that New Zealand exports. Consumer demand and sentiment for GE-free has grown, and people demand the right to choose, and for that we need labelling. Science has produced huge numbers of unsuccessful products and processes that now affect our bodies. Trans fats, 25 years ago, were not considered a problem. Highly processed food created in a lab is now considered unhealthy, as is fructose, corn syrup, but they have happily been unleashed on the population. Microplastics are everywhere, causing harm. No one knew the harm that they would cause when plastic was first invented. Like GMOs, they are a Pandora's box that can't be put back or fixed. So it's clear that science is an unfolding story, and gene technology is a particularly big minefield. Keeping GE in the lab is vital because there is compelling evidence for the interconnectedness of life. Ecosystems have intricate interdependencies between species. Trees communicate and share nutrients through mycorrhizal networks. Microorganisms play crucial roles in larger organisms, whether it's fungi and plant root systems or microbes in our gut, impacting our nutrition, mental health, allergies, and more. Diverse organisms from bacteria to humans show this interconnectedness of life. This interconnectedness is why precaution is needed with gene technology. To let GE out of the environment is final. It can't be put back. The committee chair, Mr. Sam Uffenden, wrote an excellent article in 2020 about a shift to a more sustainable method of agricultural production. He wrote consumer preferences, government regulations, environmental sustainability, and involving farming practices are all contributing to a shift towards a cleaner, more sustainable methods of agricultural production. Thank you, MP Uffenden. Consumers don't consider gene technology as genuinely cleaner or more sustainable compared to alternatives, and New Zealand is an ideal place to keep GE out of the environment. We're surrounded by water. Consumers worldwide want clean, green, and increasingly organic food, so I would like to request a Royal Commission on genetic modification before this bill goes ahead any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much for your presentation today. The committee's enjoyed having you here, and thank you for your advocacy in this space. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
She's amazing, isn't she? Look, she's just amazing. How clever was it to reference Sam's own article?
That's always what you do, to sit down there and catch people out on things, especially when they look like they're in hypocritical situations.
The other thing I would note is that how much it was just a sort of accidental event where she was sitting next to somebody in a powerful position and she managed to chat away to them on the plane, and that possibly shaped Fonterra's policy for a significant period of time. And we sort of look at Luxon, and he seems to be a little bit like Muldoon, where he's surrounded by lobbyists, and he's been convinced, like Muldoon was, he was convinced that he was doing the right thing for agriculture, and so many farmers lost their farms under him, and he is a well-hated, even though farmers still tend to vote right-wing. He is not considered very popular because of the 20% interest and the massive increase in farm values. It basically shifted heaps of farmers and destroyed rural communities. And I just think if this bill comes in, Luxon is actually going to be considered worse than
I think he's already going down that path already. I'm like, put it this way, Luxon's government has used urgency more than any other government in history. The previous record breaker was John Key, who beat Muldoon's record on urgency, which is quite intriguing how it managed to actually beat, because Muldoon was known as the urgency king, and this government has just basically obliterated the Muldoon urgency that was just mad as anything.
Well, urgency is actually a mind hack. So if you look at the nudge units and things like that, and if you're marketing and PR, if you can create a sense of fear and urgency in people, it actually it breaks down the barrier of rational thinking and careful decision making. So it's actually a real problem to sort of treat your population like that on an ongoing basis. And I really dislike it as a sort of a policy that we've sort of seen over the past 50
week, I think. The House didn't go into urgency, but the week before it did, and it was an urgency for effectively 2 days. I mean, let's take a look at an example. The Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill was passed into urgency. And I think I'm not sure if it did committee house, but it did third reading. The Sentencing Reform Bill did both committee house and the third reading. One bill that wasn't passed under urgency that just passed in the last week was the Section 7AA removal of the old Rangatamariki Act that had 2 stages in the space of 1 week. So one bill was, a bunch of legislation was set under urgency, but this last week just been, nothing was under urgency. But without being under urgency, you can still pass a realistic amount of legislation.
Yeah, I was talking to a distant cousin of mine in Takaka, and she said, look, it's January and I've already submitted on 5 bills. And she's like, I'm hyper-focused on this one, but I know that if I've only submitted on 2, the treaty principles and this, but it's just, it creates a distress. Like, I haven't actually picked up a paintbrush in about 3 months, which is supposed to be my job. And you end up sort of sucked into the political ecosystem because
I've got one that I submitted last Thursday, which was the right of repair bill of Manama Davidson. So that was one that was done. I mean, we've got, as the organisation, we've got 2 bills to deal with, which is the 4-year term, the referendum framework. So it's a bit coming.
Well, the right of repair is hugely important to farmers because in terms of tractors, they're trying to patent tractors so that they data gather and farmers can't repair their old tractors, and they have to use the new tractors, which gather all the soil data and all of the weather data and things like that. And it's sort of sold offshore and used as a thing to sort of predict future markets and bet against New Zealand to make sure that our exports are sort of under threat. It's the whole thing. And so it's really hard to keep up with. And I really dislike this. Conservatives, there's this thing, this old-fashioned thing, it's called the Chesterton principle, where conservatives don't pull down a fence until you know why it was put up. And this government is not conservative
John
at all.
Deere, and that would have been coming from Laura. Okay, we're going to take a quick break for a countdown, and you'll have the next fun of the next 2 hours with my astounding co-host, Laura.
Awesome. And Elvira, isn't it? She's amazing.
And Claire. Yeah.
Okay, great. It'll be a great...
Walking through the city, lights all aglow. Everybody's got a story to show. Wheels keep spinning, streets overflow. Hustle never stops, we're in the flow. Skylines high like our dreams in the air. Concrete jungle, we got flair. Rhythm of the night, we don't care. Underneath the stars we breathe rare. In this urban jungle we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side. Echoes of the past linger near. Future calls, we face it with no fear. Every corner tells a tale so clear. In the city, we chase what we hold dear. Shadows and whispers blend in the night. City's pulse beats with all its might. Lost in the chaos, but it feels right. We rise above, reach new heights. In this urban jungle, we're alive. Heartbeats echo as we strive. Dreams collide where the streets survive. Together we'll thrive, side by side.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for the third hour of the marathon. My name is Laura, and I'm joined by two wonderful panelists. Welcome, and please introduce yourselves.
After you, Claire.
You go first.
All right. Got such lovely manners.
Kia ora. Go, Elvira.
Sorry, you just cut out for a minute there. Okay, thank you. I was on the panel last week, and I gave my background as someone who used to work for Crop and Food years ago on the GE project on onions. I actually set it up.
Yes, the onions. Yes, I remember that.
The onions. And I used to work on garlic as well, but I didn't engineer garlic. That was just a sideshow. And yeah, that's me. I'm now no longer in science, but I do keep up with things as much as I can. And I'm very grateful to Claire because she's always sending stuff and doing press releases and all sorts of OIAs. She's great at OIAs. So, you know, we get a bit of background information on all the dirty secrets.
Nice. So Claire, you kind of broke up there in the beginning. Did you want to reintroduce yourself and tell the audience a bit about what you do?
Okay. Okay. Kia ora, ko Claire Bleakley tako ingoa. I'm president of G-Free New Zealand, and I have to say, people like Elvira, Jack, we've got such a wonderful community of support that we all sort of feed off each other. But I've been in this for the last 25 years, and I have, as Elvira said, I've been very, very frustrated with the people who are influencing the way things go. And so I have been writing lots of OIAs, and we've been getting some very interesting replies.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so like last week, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the select committee, and we're going to basically do a review of the submissions that have come in. So I'll just go over to the next video.
We have you for 5 minutes. I'll hand it to you.
Oh,
sorry.
Hold on. Don't want to start that quickly. Okay. Okay, so this submitter is Seed and Grain New Zealand.
Tēpuna hoki, ko Ocean Mercy Aho no Ngāti Porou. I'm a professor of Māori Studies at Victoria University, and I'm also a principal investigator on the National Science Challenge Bioheritage Novel Tools and Strategies for Invertebrate Pest Control.
And Sam is asking me to actually go over to the next submission, which is Ocean Mercer, I think. Let's have a look. Oh, hold on. Not really. I haven't been given a timestamp here. We'll just go through this.
9 years, 10 refereed papers, and 4 master's completions. So I recognise the theoretical potential of gene tech for better environmental outcomes through more targeted pest management for the benefit of te taiao. My research team engaged 120 tangata whenua and tangata tiriti in discussions on gene tech for pest management. Through our interviews, focus groups, and we produced educational material to facilitate understanding within those discussions. We found public perspectives on gene silencing, genetic modification, and gene drive, as well as gene editing, range from amazement, gratitude, interest, to concern and alarm, so the whole spectrum. But a strong desire emerged for further education and broader discussion on these issues. Crucially, a significant number of the people we talked to wanted decisions about gene tech to be made with treaty partners and with treaty underbidding the discussion. So in spite of the potential I see, I oppose the Gene Technology Bill in its current form. And I've listed a number of reasons in my written submission. I thank you for taking the time to read it, but 2 overarching reasons I'll speak to today. Firstly, the bill seems to ignore decades of tangata whenua and tangata tiriti concerns, debates, and up-to-the-minute research about gene technology and decision-making. And the bill thus squanders the opportunity for broader education, broader discussion, and decision-making processes that would support a whole of country approach to this. The hasty introduction of the bill bypasses that public debate, but it's key that Aotearoa is along and involved in this particular debate. It's crucial. These are not just technological questions, economical questions. Scientists I've worked with agree that there are social questions to be asked here, as well as spiritual, cultural, and ethical dimensions, especially the ethical dimensions, we ignore at our peril. Secondly, the MAG, the Māori Advisory Group, is a welcome gesture, but given the long-term interest of tangata whenua in gene technology, the bill, I think, does Māori a disservice through its limited tiriti scope. For instance, my colleague Rain Hananui submits that tangata whenua don't just exercise kaitiakitanga over taonga, but environments impacted by exotic species, wasps, rats, etc. So the bill should make allowances for tikanga and mātauranga as well, both traditional and contemporary, thinking about that spectrum of research over decades, once again, and make provisions for rangatiratanga. So I recommend we withdraw the bill and amend, and that could take anything from Papa Whakaritoripo's suggestion of 12 months to 10 years, the lifetime of the National Science Challenges. Now, Mihi, happy to take a question if there's time.
Thank you. Yeah, kia ora. Thank you very much for your submission. Very clear on the importance of taking into account tangata whenua engagement. The history of Y262 and the like is very important for that. I wonder if you can talk to us about how speculative things like gene drives are. So conceptually, people like the idea that we might be able to deal with wasps or wilding pines, but in your understanding of the science, how far away are we from that, and what are the practical pathways? Is it even reasonable to expect that that's possible?
Yeah, so there is a lot of theory at the moment. So I'm working with scientists who talk in terms of 5 years or 10 years horizon for things like gene drive, and this is for very specific applications, for instance, for wasps. And so every biological system is quite different and requires a different approach. So our researchers are working on T haplotype transgenic from mice to rats. That's just a completely different system from a gene modification in relation to wasps. So there's years and years of research needs to go into the technology behind these innovations, and so there is an opportunity there for us to keep pace with that as long as the research is confined to the lab. I think, and to safely develop them. But I think there are huge risks for our environments if they go beyond that scope.
Got it. Yeah. So lab containment's crucial.
Yes.
Thank you. We're out of time. Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay, so what are your guys' opinions on that submission?
I thought she was great. She was practical, she was realistic, and she took the whole picture into consideration. And I like the fact that she listed tangata whenua, treaty, economic, social, technical, ethical. It's all in the it's all equally important, and she made that quite clear. And I thought Steve's question was good, and I thought the fact that she said she wanted to oppose it, withdraw it, and amend it. Well, my question with this amending is, why don't we just go back to the wonderful Has-No Act, which has everything we need in it. It's watertight, and then we can just update it, to modernise it, so that it's up to date with what's going on in research and what's going on in the field and in other countries, if it is. And she didn't mention the precautionary principle, but that was kind of implied, I think, in the way she spoke about it. So really clear, and Steve's question was really clear and good too.
Yeah, I mean, with you being a geneticist, can you explain to the audience and to myself what are gene drives? I don't know much about that subject.
Gene drives, I would just explain sort of briefly. They basically genetically propelled, if you like, through a population in order to do something like, and often it's to sterilize, so that you get you can no longer breed from that, wasps, say, or wilding pines were two examples that keep coming up.
Right. That's good to know. I hope everyone in the audience also got that. That was
drive it through the population. That's what you can think of.
All right. Claire, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought she was absolutely amazing in her clarity of how she really looked at both the treaty issues, the problems with gene drives and stuff like that. But what I liked most was the fact that she said she wanted to withdraw it, and it might take 10 years with which to fix this. What we have to be realizing is that transgenics was promoted in the same way, almost identically to how gene editing is being promoted. And yet you've got scientists today saying, oh, transgenics is the worst failure we've ever had. Let's try gene editing. So maybe in 10 years, it will be such a big failure. We'll thank God that we didn't implement it.
Okay. I think the next submission that we're going to be looking at now is from the New Zealand Council for Civil Liberties. This ought to be interesting.
Next up, we have the New Zealand Council for Civil Liberties joining us for 10 minutes. We have Andrew Ecclestone, Deputy Chair, in front of us today. Good morning.
Good morning. As the Chair just said, my name is Andrew Ecclestone. I'm the Deputy Chair. I'm also an Adjunct Senior Research Fellow at Victoria University and a former Senior Investigator in the Office of the Ombudsman. The Council has no position on the Gene Technology Bill as a whole, as you would expect from a Council on Civil Liberties. What we do have is a position on the insertion of yet more clauses into legislation that oust the Official Information Act. The Council objects to the secrecy clauses in this bill, in clauses 59 and 151, as these will unjustifiably limit the public's right to information as guaranteed by the Official Information Act. These provisions matter because they will damage public trust in the regulatory regime for novel gene technologies. The 2024 Edelman Trust Barometer, which measures trust in issues around the world, looked at public trust in novel technologies and scientific innovation. They found that 58% of the public reject GMO foods and 34% reject gene-based therapies. And to counter this, they recommend greater openness, not less. To build trust, people must have confidence in the regulatory regime, and secrecy undermines this. As drafted, Clause 59 ousts the OIA for information held by the relevant agencies that is likely to relate to an application for a license or for a Section 12 determination before an application is submitted. This ouster of the OIA is not justifiable. It is not considered in the regulatory impact statement. It's not mentioned in the Cabinet Papers or the vetting of the bill under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. It is only in answer to question 4.9 of the Departmental Disclosure Statement that MB provides a rationale. It says, this limitation is necessary to protect confidential information while an application is being developed and to avoid discouraging pre-application engagement with the regulator. And it's relevant that question 4.9 asks whether the bill contains any provisions that are unusual or call for special comment. And the provision is more than unusual. It is, in our experience, unprecedented. MB and the government's claim rationale for this clause does not withstand scrutiny. The reason that it's an unnecessary provision is that the pre-application information that the clause relates to is already protected by section 92B of the OIA, which states that information can be withheld if it's necessary to either protect a trade secret or because disclosure would be likely to unreasonably prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied or who is the subject to the information. And there is a second withholding ground in the OIA that is relevant. 92BA of the OIA says that information can be withheld if it is necessary to protect information subject to an obligation of confidence, where disclosure would prejudice future supply. So in other words, there are already provisions in the OIA that cover the circumstances of pre-application supply of information and interchange with the regulator. There is no need to ask the OIA. The OIA has ample provision for this. So the Council recommends that subclauses 59.2, 59.3 and 59.4 are deleted from the bill. There is also a problem with clause 151 of the bill. Clause 151.5 enables information sharing between agencies, but allows the imposition of conditions the agency thinks fit relating to the disclosure of the information that's been shared. This could lead to claims that a statutorily backed obligation of confidence has been created when information is shared between two government agencies and thus override the OIA. Further, under the OIA, ministers and agencies are only able to impose conditions on the use of information if good reason exists under the law not to disclose to the public. So, taking that in slightly more detail, if clause 1515 allows information to be kept confidential, agencies could then argue that section 90B of the OIA is engaged, which protects information subject to an obligation of confidence. Government cannot normally owe a duty of confidence to itself, but the explicit provision in clause 1515 may override that, effectively enabling the government to contract out with the OIA. Second, the Ombudsman has been very clear on multiple occasions that conditions on the use or sharing of information released to a requester can only be imposed in circumstances where there is good reason under the OIA to withhold the information from the public in general. So the Council recommends that in clause 151 you add a subclause that states nothing in this section limits the Official Information Act 1982 or the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act 1987 or the Privacy Act 2020. The secrecy clauses in this bill exemplify the issue we highlighted in a briefing to the Minister for Public Service in 2021, where we said that there had been more than 30 secrecy clauses enacted by the last government already. All too frequently, these secrecy clauses are inserted into new legislation, and MB, the department behind this bill, is one of the worst offenders. Later this week, I will be speaking to another select committee about the Offshore Renewable Energy Bill, where it has also inserted a secrecy clause. In many cases, these clauses are inserted to try and provide a guarantee to companies that their information will never be disclosed. Instead, agencies should be reassuring companies that the OIA already provides adequate protection. Besides shutting out the public and fostering distrust and suspicion of a captured regulator, these secrecy clauses send a message that the government does not trust the Ombudsman. The committee should reject this attack on the OIA and amend the bill as we recommend. Happy to take your questions.
Deborah, good submission.
Yeah, reverting to clause 59.
Yep.
And you're suggesting the OIA already covers that stuff.
Yep.
Do you think it might be more effective if there's a specific reference to the OIA in there?
The problem here is that 59.3 specifically says the OIA does not apply to that information until the application is received by the regulator. So it's specifically carving out this pre-application exchange of information between a potential applicant and the regulator. Now, we can understand why companies and scientists would want to have a pre-application discussion, because the regulator may say your application's not in good enough shape to come to us yet. If you put it in now, we'll reject it, right? But the OIA already provides ample protection for that kind of information. There's no need to carve out the OIA from that kind of pre-application discussion. Right? The point about the OIA applying is that there is a narrow window there where the Ombudsman may say in a complaint on a refused OIA request, the public interest in disclosure in this circumstance outweighs the need for confidentiality. And the point about these secrecy clauses is that government's effectively saying, we don't trust the Ombudsman's judgment on where the balance of public interest lies. Right? Now, those kind of attacks, Parliament should not be endorsing. It passed the OIA 43 years ago. It's been quite happy to live with the OIA for that amount of time, and it's been happy to accept the Ombudsman's judgments on where the balance of public interest lies. So if you knock out subsections 59.2, 3 and 4, then all you're saying is that who holds the information for the purposes of dealing with a request. And that's fine. You should clarify who holds the information because it's going to go to a couple of different agencies. But there's no need to have 2, 3 and 4 in there because the OIA amply protects that information. And agencies take a conservative approach with a small c to OIA withholding grounds and commercial sensitivity, and so does the Ombudsman. It's relatively rare for the Ombudsman to find that the public interest in disclosure outweighs this kind of information being protected under the OIA. But if the public has to have confidence in the regulator not being in too cozy a relationship with applicants, it's got to be capable of being scrutinised, and this prevents that kind of scrutiny.
Yes, Steve. Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, you're saying this leans into potential public scepticism of the transparency of government because it looks like government's intentionally trying to keep things secret.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. That's why I quoted these figures from the Edelman Trust Barometer. Right? Yeah. I mean, we don't do very good surveying of public trust in this country. We tend to rely on international surveying mechanisms, and occasionally New Zealand falls off the map. That's why I quoted the Edelman Trust Barometer. If you've got 58% of the public around the world rejecting GMO foods and 34% rejecting gene-based therapies, there's a lot of public distrust in novel science, which means that the public has to be able to have confidence in the regulator safeguarding their interest. The bill does not contain a precautionary principle. The Cabinet papers quite explicitly say we're not going to have a precautionary principle in this bill, and therefore the public have to be confident that the regulator's relationship with companies that are going to be submitting applications is not too cosy. And that's what the OIA provides a guarantee for, is that if you make a request and it's refused, you go to the Ombudsman can look at the papers and say, no, this doesn't smell right to me, and I think I need to dig further, and could find that the public interest in this case favours disclosure and outweighs the reasons for commercial confidentiality or submitted in confidence.
Very good, very clear. Yeah, very good submission. Thank you very much.
Secrecy clauses, what do we think?
Well, can I say, this gentleman, he absolutely hit the nail on the head. In August, G-Free New Zealand wrote to actually ask for a whole lot of information that informed the new bill that we didn't know was going to come on. And lo and behold, we did not get any reply to it. We had to go to the Ombudsman. We got the reply last week. And the most vital information, which was this Technology Advisory Committee that Saraya mentioned, which is totally embedded in people who will benefit from this bill being passed, either with patents, either with being able to use the GE product or whatever. Now, in this, the Technological Advisory Committee actually was totally redacted. 7 pages of this information of 158 was just redacted, and all the rest was just kind of preamble of how they were in their meetings, because it was all meeting data. So in the end, what we do know is that actually the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment are already using this technique. And we are more and more having to go to the Ombudsman. So bang on, and I thank this gentleman for Civil Liberties to actually raise this, because it is highly, highly important that we as a democratic and also submitters who need that information to make informed decisions have that information, so we don't look silly when we present. So, yeah, I would like to congratulate him on an excellent submission. And I felt the question that Steve asked was pertinent. Yeah.
Yep, he absolutely nailed it. And I just loved his, I love it when they just churn out all this stuff really fast and lots of numbers and lots of, like, you know, they sound really like they know their stuff, and it just comes out, and he was going for it, which was wonderful. Now, what someone I know always says this, she always says, politicians are the highest paid beneficiaries in the country. And, you know, they have to realise that they are public servants. Everybody that works for a government department, no matter how high up you think you are and how well paid you are being paid by the people. So it's your job to work for the people. And there's so much secrecy in this bill. It's ridiculous. What amazes me is that lawyers aren't just coming right out, and he virtually did, which was wonderful. I'm not sure if he's a lawyer, but he speaks like one. And say, well, this is just so defective in terms of a piece of legislation. It just can't function. You know, there's so much in it that's just not functional. And he was great. He just picked all the fundamental faults out and yeah, took the government to task, which is, we need more like this. It's wonderful. So yeah, congratulations to him.
Yeah, really, really good submission. He was going so fast, he could have given Eminem a run for his money.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next submission.
Put some music behind it.
Yeah, make a remix. Okay.
That's right.
All right, so the next submission is by Mr. Haycock.
Up we have Ewan Haycock joining us for 5 minutes.
Morning.
Morning. Good to have you here. hand that over to you now.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, I believe that the Gene Technology Bill currently before the Select Committee is far too loose in its scope and parameters and is unnecessary. Also, the entire control over whether or not a field trial of a new gene technology can occur would be in the hands of a single unelected regulator body. A rogue regulator could destroy agricultural and horticultural sectors irreparably in very short order. I'll note here that NBIE has said that some new crops will be able to bypass the regulator if they consider that the risk is low. And NBIE was the people behind forming the bill. And I assume this means that current GE crops, of which there are only 3 commercially worldwide from 20 years of research, would be able to be grown in New Zealand in short order after this bill is passed, if it is passed, which I hope it's not. Further, our current legislation controlling gene-related research and development is actually perfectly adequate and does not prevent new gene technology from reaching the field trial stage, as some people suggest. It has good risk assessment component that has worked well, and as of yet, no new gene technology has emerged from New Zealand, either into our domestic market field trials. And this is because financial returns from these new products could not be realised in the real world against traditional equivalents. Climate change seems to be a major driver behind introducing the new gene technology bill. And I'd like to point out here that there's actually a natural alternative which is being grown in New Zealand currently that can reduce the methane output of our stock animals by 90%. It's a red seaweed being grown in Bluff, and it has an active ingredient bromoform, which is currently listed as a veterinary medicine, which means that we can't actually use the processed red seaweed here in New Zealand. In Australia, they can. I'd like to see that the status of bromoform, or at least the red seaweed, changed in status to be in a food supplement for stock as opposed to being restricted under veterinary medicine, because this would open up huge market export, reduce our stock methane output by 90%, which actually means we can meet our carbon targets naturally while retaining our pure green status and our GE-free status in New Zealand with regard to food and animals. There's also quite a number of things that really concern me around gene technology and what gets done with it worldwide. In the 1990s, there was a bacteria modified to turn the waste material from wheat harvest into alcohol, and that the alcohol being used in farm machinery, and then the nutrient-rich leftover sludge being put back onto the soil to act as a fertilizer for future crops. They went right through a whole regulatory process and was fully approved to enter into field trials. A postgraduate student did some further work, and simulated the soil with the sludge added to it, and planted wheat in it, came back and found that the wheat had completely turned to slime. The bacteria was still active in the soil. They've also been tested to see how far bacteria spreads from an isolated 10 square metre trial. They put a marker on it so that they could trace it. It went worldwide from a 10 square metre sample in one country. So that bacteria could have gone worldwide. Wheat as a grass could have affected all of the grasses worldwide and led to sort of, or possibly terrestrial extinction of our fauna. Really major stuff. Currently, there is a cyanobacteria that they found that lives around volcanoes in hot water, single-celled thing, feeds on the nutrients, sequesters carbon dioxide, and then sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Only exists in the hot waters around the volcanoes. They're looking at modifying that bacteria so that they can thrive in colder waters. Will be in direct competition with plankton, which is basically the food source for, primary food source for the entire ocean. It could lead to a mass extinction, or at least severe depletion in our oceans. These are the kind of things that lead me to believe that gene technology around the world actually needs to be tightened up and more risk assessments placed upon it rather than loosened up here. That's kind of in a nutshell. I think a lot of other people will cover a lot of my other concerns. I don't know if you have any questions.
We got time.
I've got a moment here. If you have a question, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, are you concerned that even in the US regulatory framework, there's restrictions on use of gene tech for microbes and animals? It's only allowed for plants. But here in this proposed liberalisation, quite a radical liberalisation, you would be able to have exemptions for any number of different kinds of species. So you bring into play the risks of microbial.
Yes, there are those risks, and I think the regulator can amend the legislation. Doesn't have to go back through a process like this at any time in the future. I will note that I actually approve of the use of new gene technology in medical interventions, but I think that can be done through amendments or clauses added into existing legislation, as long as those new gene technologies applied for disease treatment and gene treatment are not able to be carried on generation to generation, so that to treat specific gene disorders or illnesses within specific people.
Thank you.
Non-heritable.
Yeah, I mean, he brings up a good question. What happened to the hype around red seaweed? Why are we going down the GMO track? And, I find the argument from the national government that the idea of, okay, we need GMOs to reduce the methane, to be really silly when this is the same government that's advocating for, increasing the amount of fossil fuels that we use as a society and extracting fossil fuels, which is also a big contributor of methane.
I quite agree with you.
Yeah.
You go, Elvira.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we mentioned, well, I spoke about that last time also, about healthy soils rich in organic matter and microbes have methanotrophic bacteria, which basically take care of the methane so that it's not a problem. And that's always been the way in wild ecosystems that have had ruminants, zebras, giraffes, bison, buffalo, whatever, huge herds. And there's never been a problem because the soil bacteria have taken care of it. So they blame the animals when, if they just farm in a way that's biologically healthy, they don't need to blame the animals. Just leave these poor animals to do what they do.
Biological health gets in the way of profits.
Exactly. And the example he was talking about, that was incredibly scary. That was going to turn waste into alcohol, and they were going to release it, the bacterium, sorry. And fortunately, the postgrad just happened to do that experiment at the right time. I mean, it's like any bacterium that gets into a soil, once it's out there, it's incredibly difficult to contain it, unless you're a separate island. Unfortunately, we have two islands, so one island might be able to, contain it. And also what hasn't really come up, and Jack is an expert on this, is the concept of horizontal gene transfer, because microbes in the soil, or microbes generally, microbes in your gut, they don't have to be the same species to mate. They can just pass genetic information between themselves, no matter how distantly related they are. So it doesn't have to be inherited. It's just like, let's just swap a bit of DNA here and there. And that happens in soils, it happens in your gut. So there's two things to worry about. If you get anything that's GE microbial stuff in the soil, it could destroy your soil bacteria. It could outcompete them. It could take too much oxygen out of the soil, and so you get anaerobic soils. It could do anything like that, really, really conceivably. Also, in your gut, you eat genetically edited or genetically modified food, and that engineered DNA is in your gut.
I do have a question about that. I thought the gut destroyed DNA, though. Broke it down.
Not necessarily, no. It can further down in the digestive system, but it's not like 100%. See, nothing in a biological system is 100%. You always get exceptions. That's why you always get resistance popping up, and why you always get things that you don't expect genetically. It was a really good submission, I thought, and he had it really in a nutshell, and obviously knew what he was talking about. There were no moments where you thought, he's not quite up to date. He's really up to date with everything, and well done him.
Claire.
Oh, well, Elvira's really said it all, but what we do have in New Zealand is some really excellent grass, clovers that we have developed conventionally. And it's almost that GE is trying to find a space. So a bit like the margarine thing, they had to tell you how terrible butter was to be able to promote margarine. So they've actually, the worst thing with this bill is they are ignoring the alternatives. Now, in the Has No Act that exists today, that is the one thing that if you are to do something GE, you have to consider whether there are alternatives that can do it as well or better. Now, Mr. Haycock, he actually talked about field trials. This also refers back to the earlier submission we heard about the animals. The animal field trials that are going on at Ag Research are such a dismal failure, but it's not just that they failed their outcomes. The inhumanity and inhumane suffering of abortions, deformities, immune system problems, and they all almost have to be euthanized on veterinary advice. They keep them alive until the vet says you can't do it anymore. And so if we do start to engineer even our microbes, if they start to affect our animals in this way, and they get into the gut, because we know that the ryegrass has something called an endophyte, which is a microbe. They're talking about engineering the AR-37 endophyte. Now, this, yet again, if that escapes and cohabitates or horizontally transfers with a whole lot of other microorganisms, you've actually got animal health, human health, soil health, and plant health totally and utterly destroyed. So this guy, Mr. Haycock, brought up some really, really excellent points, and I really hope that this committee really considers this. And what has come to my notice is that they are struggling to find anybody who can oppose the bill scientifically. Almost everybody who we've seen can actually back up their concerns. I don't call it anti, I call it concerned and raising really good debatable problems. We aren't anti, we're just saying you ain't got the science yet.
That's a really good point. That's what I have noticed from a lot of these submitters. I thought going into this, it's like, okay, these are a bunch of people who are just skeptical of the scientific method and don't care. But all the submissions we've been getting is like, oh, okay, yep, they've got actually good backing behind them.
Yeah, yeah. But it's not just that. If you have a look at earlier submitters, and I think Soraya mentioned William Rolleston, he's been making suggestions which are blatantly untrue. It actually can be proved with science that what he's saying is the hope that it might happen.
Was he the one on?
But when it does happen,
was he the individual that was on Q&A not so long ago? Yeah, because I remember hearing a very silly analogy comparing the spread of GMO with, or the lack of adoption of GMO with automobiles. I'm like, why are we comparing those two? You're not comparing apples to apples here. Cars and GMOs are completely two different things.
But the interesting thing is a car now, before it can be released, it has to go through so many safety tests. And you get in the car now, and it's so safe that you're almost frightened that if the electronics runs out, you'll never be able to get out of it.
Unless it's a
Tesla. Yeah, well. Yeah. But just going back, I mean, there is not one human study on the long-term effects of GMOs. We are guinea pigs, and this is fake food being put onto our plates. And actually, as I say, they are looking for a desperate, you mentioned climate change, they're looking for this desperate hook with which they can claim. And I guarantee you, every time the government says, okay, we'll put research into climate change, all the GE thought channeled into the climate change parameters.
Yeah,
but if they changed it to animal health, they'd all get changed into the animal health spectrum.
Because it's about making a buck at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're looking for, they're looking for government money to pay for their commercial research.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Alrighty, we'll go on to the next submission. Let me just grab my notes. Let's see who we're up to now. By Pure New Zealand.
Yeah, it's not a long time.
It isn't, I know.
It's a big subject. Oh, thank you. Make a good decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have By Pure New Zealand with Brendan Boyd, Managing Director, presenting to us. Good morning.
Morning.
I've just got to nip out.
Tika Maori ora. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to present our company's position to the GeneTech Bill and wish to acknowledge all involved in the framework of providing this opportunity. Mine is a practical presentation, one of experience and reason, and is supported by our written submission and supplementary interview with Australian farmer Ian James, which I'm happy to take questions on later. BiPure's purpose is to serve micro, small, medium organic, natural eco brands that adhere to New Zealand's pure, clean, green proposition. We've directly worked with over 60 brands and a couple of hundred indirectly. We've led delegations with NZTE to Korea, Taiwan, Australia, USA, and several other delegations independently. Our networks and intelligence into these markets are extensive. We have specialties in systems agriculture, regulation requirements, language translation, cultural brokering, and commercial trade acumen. We are recognised internationally in our work, not only in trade, but in R&D, and are invited regularly into international events and leadership forum. A little hesitation today, stating my voice, is that of the fastest growing multi-food sector in the world, with over 4.5 million farmers across 96 million hectares with a value of 260 billion New Zealand dollars supporting me. Findings from our company research conclude that the gene technology bill is rushed, resulting in a work that is poorly conceived, research consulted and communicated on, and does not serve New Zealand society well. While we have been very welcoming of the exploration of gene tech, it needs to be done so with veracity. This bill and its processes fail to do so. The bill represents a naive surety wrapped in ill-conceived promises. It is true, the word around town, that it is radical, but for all the wrong reasons. There is no economic, trade, environmental, social, cultural risk analysis of the impact, with no capacity to deliver on requirements currently laid out. The promotion of this philosophy and ideology is shrouded in perpetual myth-making. This, combined with genuine poor literacy and decision makers into the topic, because it is very complicated, makes us ripe for poor decision-making. I've been over this topic since 1988, where I attended an ethnobotany conference, and I want to acknowledge the late Dale Wihong in Otutahi. And then in 1994, I did my master's, which was an integral part of that. And in 1999, with the founder of Te Waka Kaiora, the late Percy Tippany, we debated against Labour's Dover Samuels and their science advisor in Kai Taia. Of course, there's also the Royal Commission and subsequent international conferences, hence the passion. The backstory is that a young man farming at Anoura Bay on the East Coast, I developed unanswered questions on how we could possibly sustain the food system over time when I was witnessing the destruction and degradation of land through practices that relied on pesticide, habitat destruction, and overuse of technology, fertilisers, and got marginal results. The spraying of poison on our environment and over water was simultaneously consciously destroying biodiversity, and believing in the rhetoric that this was progressive and safe and even good for you led me very early in life to recognise this logic as profound dysfunctional, one of the many myths. There was and still is a clash between industrial, mechanistic, high-input agriculture, this whole techno-fix, and a global emergence of one based on ecology and life sciences, where healthy soil creates healthy food and healthy people. This 1927 classic, Farmers for 40 Centuries, set me, as a 24-year-old on a 5-year journey to the east, a walkabout, living and working with rural communities, researching and experiencing how do people actually live, prosper, and improve soil health over thousands of years. This period in Asia propelled me into my life's work. Simultaneous to this present of personal exploration and awakening of industrial agriculture was the publication of this book in 1995, Saving the Planet with Pesticides and Plastics. This clash of culture has each produced a mountain of literature countering each other's worldviews and solutions. The GMO debate is steeped and aligned with the saving of the planet with pesticides and plastic camp, with its own sprinkles on top. The mantra, however, is solid. The mantra requires more pesticides, more engineering, more intervention, more monoculture, and more socialising of the true cost of the environment and total health. We are at a precarious moment, and at such moments, our next moves are critical. Caution becomes our friend, not haste nor ego. Any pathway forward must be participative and with veracity. And veracity, I mean truth, trust, authenticity, and demonstrability. The rushed nature of this bill lacks clarity and is not a wise move. Rushed nature of things indicates that there's something to hide. It creates stress, anxiety, and division. Division amongst farmers, division amongst markets, and society is unacceptable. This is not good governance nor leadership. Too fast equals less control, greater negative impact. We all know this to be true. Let me give you another example. Around 2005 to 2008, I spent 2.5 years on Unilever's Sustainable Agriculture Advisory Board as a rep from the global organic sector. I learned a lot, and being involved with as rigorous an organisation as Unilever they were navigating the need to demonstrate far more sustainability in their products. Any move they made had to be rigorous, no rush. This experience, plus my extensive network, saw me leave academia and pursue a career of helping brands for international markets. That's how we could grow the New Zealand proposition. Most Kiwi brands we serve, those micro, small, medium ones, have great products. They're unique and inherently with a great promise. Our weakness is that we don't really have a brand story and sophistication, nor do we spend enough money on developing it. We are very producer-led, not very customer-centric. The others, the market, see us as simple, clean, easygoing, flexible, the country cousins they want to have. And this environment we're in today is an exemplar of that. Very casual, very easy, amazing. We need to cherish this. So in a way, it's our lifestyle that they want, an association with, a perception is what they want. This makes us desirable. The problem is we mistake this relaxed attitude for something that we can't afford for, and that's to collapse. We have to cherish what we have, truly look after it, embrace it. It is our identity to have a chance of being successful in the global market. We have a natural advantage, but to demonstrate and generate truth, trust, authenticity, and demonstrability, we need to be transparent, open, including all our labelling, fully traceable, with government endorsement. Get caught bullshitting, bye-bye, you're gone, out of the market. We have to invest in our uniqueness.
Hold on, the chair is talking, so you'll be quiet, please. Please don't use that sort of language in this committee.
Sure. We have to invest in our uniqueness, not anyone else's. We have to make ourselves hard to copy. We have to be proud, clear, confident, healthy, clean. GMO is inherently not part of that promise that we make to the world. It provides no additional unique selling points in a highly competitive world. Anyone who says so is speculative, low veracity. I know there are multiple international submissions to this select committee saying exactly this. So let's pause for a moment and recognise that our success is that we proudly do not do what others do. We proudly do what others do not do. Our proposition to the world is that we're unashamedly unique. We dare to be distinct and we offer our point of difference and attempt to deliver on that promise in a sophisticated, thorough manner. Any deviation from this proposition, however, is not very clever. BiPure, therefore, opposes the bill in its entirety and recommends it be abandoned. It is counterintuitive, lacks sophisticated intellectual rigour, and does not serve New Zealand society now or into the future. Alternatively, should we dare to compromise our unique position globally and that the bill be not abandoned, an absolute bare minimum is that all aspects of the bill that relate to the outdoor release and outdoor use of gene technology should be removed. We are creating an environment that is litigious and will pit farmer against farmer, business against business, and communities against each other, and this is shameful. This is not the leadership required right now, and we are perplexed as to what is driving it. Leadership at all levels should be delivering cohesive, uniting strategies. That is the real challenge. So BiPure's conclusion is that the bill in its current form is detrimental to both interests of health and the well-being of the population of New Zealand, our environment, and to our international standing and reputation as people and as a country. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation. We are at time, but you've made a few assertions there that this is being rushed through because there's something hidden about it. I don't think that's really an appropriate thing to say. You talked about a lot of myth-making in your submission here. You've got 16 points where you've just effectively just a moan fest, really, and you haven't offered a lot of constructive stuff about what we could do to improve this bill. But I do thank you for coming here and taking the time to submit today. Kia ora.
You're on mute.
I can hear you now. I can't hear Laura.
No, I can't hear Laura. Are you on mute? Okay.
You go, Claire.
Okay, well, I found the chair. I found Sam Uffindale incredibly combative, and I'm just not sure really what these guys are listening to. There seems to be one or two people who are very much listening to the people like Steve Abel and Deborah Russell and those people, but somehow Sam Uffindale has got this idea that I've got to rush through this, I've got to get it over and done with. I'm really pleased to have heard all these people, but I'm not going to listen to you. And I thought Brendan made some really good points, and he made them from a different angle, and it was really refreshing to hear those points and to hear Sam just cut him off, come in, but also to sort of say, oh, there was nothing constructive. It shows that they're not listening to what we have, what precious we have now. They're so intrigued to try and get this bill through that they're willing to sacrifice the beauty that we have at the moment. It needs a lot of help, let's say, but we don't want GE in this.
Yeah, I was waiting for the background on Ian James, the Australian farmer, because I think that's a really good case study of contamination. I don't know a lot about it. You may know more about it than I do, Claire, but I know it's a farmer who basically his seasonal income was wiped out by a contamination event, and he's the kind of the case study that people refer to sometimes. There are lots of others in Australia, but he's the one that comes up a bit. Sorry, I'm still getting this thing coming up in my face. I'll just clear that out. Great. What he did say was really relevant. I guess the Sam thing was defence. Sam was being really defensive because Brendan was going straight for the bullseye when he said poor literacy of decision makers. Now, actually, if you look through the bill, scientifically, it's not very literate. So he actually had a very good point there. They make so many assumptions in this bill, and they have left out so much important stuff in any sort of scientific experimental work, particularly work of this nature where the changes are heritable. So he wasn't wrong, but I think it was just that Brendan has a very direct approach and he doesn't like to mess around, and good on him. That's his style. And I thought that the when you do a submission, and this is what Sam said to me. You've got 5 minutes, you can use that time as you like. Now, I think if you can use that time as you like, I think one BS word is not really going to destroy the internet, you know, and he only said it once, and really, I imagine that word gets said in Parliament as well. I liked the fact that Brendan said it was industrial, it was mechanistic, as opposed to biological eco-farming, which is absolutely in tune with nature. If you've been on an organic farm, it's just the best. You know, there's native trees, there's birds, there's, you know, everyone's happy, and you get that lovely feel from the soil. It smells nice, the crops smell nice, it's alive. If you go to an industrial farm, it's just, like he said, monoculture. The soil is dead if you're spraying with glyphosate, or even worse than glyphosate is glufosinate, which is now getting used a lot in GE crops. And also 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, which is basically Agent Orange, that gets included in genetically engineered crops. I mean, it destroys everything. It destroys anything that's remotely alive apart from these monoculture GE crops. And you get everything dead. You go and there's no sound, there's no bees buzzing, there's no insects flying, there's no butterflies, there's no birds. So good on them.
Yeah. Okay, well, just a point that you brought up.
I feel like
Keep going.
the opportunity for people to sort of submit is to express how they feel about it. And I wonder if that sort of feedback is helpful for people.
We want people
Yes.
to improve it.
Sure.
Next up, we have the New Zealand Rock Lobster Industry Council Limited and Seafood New Zealand Limited. Mark Edwards. Yes, sir.
People might express their frustration.
Good morning, thanks for your time. I'm Mark Edwards from the Rock Lobster Industry Council, and this is Kathy Webb, who's the GM of Seafood Standards Council, so she has a lot to do with all seafood exports and the requirements that they must meet. We acknowledge the potential benefits to human health and the economy that may accrue from the use of gene technologies. However, we are concerned that risks to the current value basis of our wild caught seafoods are carefully assessed. Commercial production of genetically modified marine species is already taking place in several countries, and there is a real prospect of interest in New Zealand. Environmental risks primarily arise from GMOs escaping from contained facilities and entering the marine environment, where they might compete with or interbreed with wild populations. New Zealand's seafood exporters currently receive general but difficult to quantify economic benefits from our GM-free status. A 2024 report by the NZIER found that New Zealand's primary sector exports could reduce by 10 to 20 billion annually if GMOs were released into the environment. The bill's RIS acknowledges that damage to New Zealand's reputation and market positioning may threaten current price premiums associated and may also create market risks, either because of the costs associated with complex assurance processes for gene technology or as a result of trade barriers or prohibitions or clearance delays at the border. It's a critical issue, the border, for many of New Zealand's seafood products which are exported in a live or fresh form. China is the single biggest export market for New Zealand seafood at 730 million. Chinese consumers are highly sceptical about eating genetically modified food, and they are known to be very responsive to food safety issues and threats. Generally, New Zealand trades on its clean, green reputation, which for lobsters, for example, is embodied in wild caught from remote and pristine environments and that sort of image. In our experience, trade and market access barriers may be imposed due to domestic market protections or consumer preferences or misinformation, including due to political influences. I mean, the trade is misused, is what I'm saying. Our submission outlines a number of examples, and you may have heard some from our power colleagues earlier this morning too, I think. We agree that New Zealand's legislative framework for gene technology needs to be updated. However, our key point is it's essential that the full range of benefits and risks of gene technology are assessed so that we can be confident that the decisions will not result in a net loss of economic value to New Zealand. And the omission of consideration of economic and trade-related risks is a major concern for us in terms of the bill. The sustained reduction in export value will have flow-on effects, including loss of quota value, including for Maori settlement quota, and regional job losses in processing and harvesting sectors, as well as the associated industries. It's suggested that providing information to inform an assessment of trade risks would add regulatory burden to applicants and the regulator, but the HASNO Act currently enables trade-related issues to be considered when assessing applications, and we think that sort of area should remain. It's also common for regulators under other New Zealand statutes to be required to assess the economic costs and benefits of a proposal. For example, when assessing marine consent applications, the EPA must consider the effect of a proposal on existing interests and other activities in the area, as well as the economic benefit to New Zealand of allowing the application. In reality, much of the market and trade-related information is likely to be provided by submitters rather than the applicant. So we recommend that the expertise available to the regulator through the technical advisory group should be expanded to include expertise on trade and economic matters, as well as those risks explicitly included in the bill. We note that the scope of the Maori Advisory Committee does not encompass impacts on the Maori commercial fishery settlement, even though the Crown has a duty to uphold the value of those settlements. The recommendations in our submission set out some solutions we've suggested that could address these issues through adjustments to the bill. We're happy to take any questions you have.
Right, we've got heaps of time. Excellent. So,
Awesome. Thank you very much. Again, a very clear submission. Thank you. You say the negative impacts on trade may occur in the absence of any discernible environmental health impacts arising from gene technology. It's therefore not sufficient to rely on the bill's protections against risk to human health and environment as a proxy for addressing trade risk. Can you expand on your view that the complexity and the sophistication of markets mean that the cost of getting access to those markets, border compliance and so forth, how big of a risk and a concern is that for you around this liberalisation of gene tech?
I think it's a real risk for us, particularly in markets we trade with. We have a very diverse portfolio of markets, but markets like China, who have particularly sensitive to what they may perceive as food safety issues.
Yeah.
We know that they have banned products from other countries for various reasons, which may or may not be linked to food safety or to misinformation or market protection. So I think in this instance, it's a very real risk for us. And so we need to ensure that those risks are addressed as part of the assessment of any application that's involving a marine species.
I guess I'd add to that, in respect of China, which you'll see in our submission, we've actually quoted some research which talks about their particular sensitivity to GMO issues. Some of our seafood exports are hugely reliant on China, simply because they are a very high-paying market. Lobsters, for example, 98% of our exported lobsters go to China, and we are criticised for that reliance. But the fact is, it is the highest-paying market, and no other market can pay the price or take the volume. So that reliance remains.
But just to very quickly add to that, that's because we've been built on a very good reputation for providing safe food, good quality from a clean environment.
So that natural food reputation is a big part of our brand respect and the reason we're prepared to consume our product and perhaps pay a premium for it.
Yes,
absolutely. I mean, I talked to our group of exporters, lobster exporters of New Zealand, and they are very emphatic on the subject. The clean, green, wild, pristine environment is absolutely critical to the way we market in China.
Well, that seems to be little understood. There seems to be very difficult to get actual tangible information on the value of that reputation when we have asked. It seems to be widely perceived by people in the industry.
Yes.
I encourage you to look at.
We've got a few comments.
So we're talking about the clean, green environment, but lobster comes out of the sea. It would be sufficient to have a clean, green, blue, whatever reputation just for our seafood, or is the fact that if we had GMO on the land, would that taint our seafood reputation as well? I'm asking for you won't know.
I guess that's why we're saying that we're not looking to prejudge an assessment or what processes could be put in place, or containment or other measures to try and protect that spread into the wild environment. But we're just saying that risk has to be part of a considered decision making about the New Zealand use of GMOs.
Yes.
And my other one is that I think it's pretty clear that King Salmon have made it clear they don't intend to use GMO anytime soon, having been one of the pioneers of it and shifting away from it in the opposite direction. Do you envisage your industry at any time being keen in the near future to be taking up genetic modification of species?
We don't know of any examples, but if you look overseas at some of the claimed benefits, New Zealand regulatory environment could allow that, and there's no barrier to entrants coming in and picking up and seeking to use that technology.
Just has to take into account the value of this wild fishery and the value of that reputation.
Yeah. Again, we're not looking to prohibit that investigation or what benefits there might be, but there is a proper process that takes into account those risks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today.
Well, that was a very, very, very complex and really great submission. What I'd like to say is, Steve mentioned GE salmon. He obviously might not have been able to say that the reason that King Salmon got out of it was because they did do GE salmon, and it was so deformed and so terrible that they had to crash it. In America, Aqua Bounty has also got a salmon, and it grows like 2 or 3 times the size. And somebody said it's like a human shark. It will eat its own young, and it will eat anything. It's so hungry, and it grows really, really big if it escapes. Well, actually, Aqua Bounty has now totally shut shop. They've closed all their facilities. The other thing too, in Japan, they have released a farmed fish, but unfortunately, they're freaking out because the latest earthquake has actually destroyed the facility. So it's all very well, What I would like for Steve or one of the people to have asked was, every submitter we've heard who supports the bill, they say, we support it. However, I'd like him to ask to say, if we do not implement your amendments, would you still support the bill? And I have a feeling that would put them in a slightly different place. And we might find that almost close to 100% of people would actually not support this bill.
Yeah, that's great comment, Claire. And absolutely, I don't actually ever like the idea of farming fish, because I know that they're really constrained. They can't do their natural behaviours. They eat yucky food that they wouldn't normally eat in the real sea. They can't migrate. They can't, do what fish do. They can't behave in a fish way. And I like the fact that Steve brought out that king salmon basically didn't keep going down that track because it wasn't successful, and also the food safety issue of GE fish didn't come up. Now I think that's a huge one, and also the possibility of floods, earthquakes, human error. Human error is huge. Antibiotics, thanks Michael, in the chat. Human error is the source of so many things that go wrong, and people could easily just make a mistake, and then these fish could end up getting out. It's often they're in containment in the sea. I think that some of them are actually in sea farms, where they have these big nets and boundaries and everything. But what's to say that something can't go wrong there? I just think the whole thing of genetically engineering any sort of animal it's just grotesque. So no one will ever convince me any other way.
Well, they did find in that early days that the little salmon sprats, which are really, really small, actually could go through the nets.
Yeah, of course.
And they were quite worried about that. And we don't know what will happen.
No.
And this earthquake, what happens if those farmed fish, they say that they've also made coloured zebrafish, GE zebrafish, and people put them in their fish tanks. They've escaped, and nobody knows what's going to happen with those. We just don't know what we're doing, and it's really, really sad how we're destroying nature, really. By the way, the mic's gone. So they are trying to reboot it, and it says that maybe a GMO hacked their mic. So I presume it's the next person's turn. So there's going to be a countdown. Is that right, Laura? Yeah.
Thanks so much.
So thank you for listening. Yeah, it was really, really great. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Sam.
Bye.
Everyone must go.
Yeah.
Everyone must go. Everyone must go. But where to? For the latest New Zealand political news, you could tune into the 6 p.m. news. Or you can tune into the Order Paper podcast, where you can see the no-name backbenchers you never heard of hard at work, such as Mike, Willis, Lawrence, Todd, Helen, and Hannah. So where everyone must go to get their weekly political update. Everyone must go to the Order Paper podcast. Everyone must go to the Order Paper podcast. Available on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also available to watch outside Aotearoa, New Zealand, like Australia, United Kingdom, the United States of America, even Russia and Zimbabwe. The Order Paper podcast at 8 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time every Sunday. Media News, or you can tune in to the Order Paper Podcast, where you can see the no-name backbenchers you never heard of hard at work, such as Mike, Willis, Lawrence, Todd, Helen, and Hannah. So where everyone must go to get their weekly political update, everyone must go to the Order.
Hello, is my microphone working now?
It is working, Laura.
Oh,
very,
thank
very
God.
well.
Okay, I was sitting in perpetual silence there for God knows how long. That must have been awkward. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
How are we?
I think Big GMO hacked my microphone before.
Yeah, he might have just deleted it. Sort
Yeah,
of
no,
like
shut
that.
this down. No.
Like that poor bugger that was said bullshit. Like, we are allowed to say bullshit, eh?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Hey, listen, I'm a libertarian. Go hog wild.
No, they
Can I say, do bullshit? If they don't,
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah, well, it is all bullshit anyway, isn't it? But yeah, tell you what, I was just thinking, you know, like it's really sad. There's some really terrific spokespeople for agriculture and food and all that sort of thing, and that's what this thing has actually dragged out, even though it's like a dark time. You know, that last submitter, he was fantastic, eh? You know, like
Yeah,
the second to last one, you know, like, and you know, it reminds me like of John O'Frew and all the other different ones that have you know, started speaking about natural agriculture. There's something that happens, isn't there, when if we sort of kill to grow things, you know, like in the conventional method. And I mean, I learnt that. I was very proficient at it. I studied it at school, and I really enjoyed it with my life. But
Mhm.
we are very boorish in that sense because we're so separated from nature. When you look at people that go back to nature and they go back to natural farming and things like that, they've just got a whole bit of energy about them. And we sort of have a no bullshit clause that's just sort of in our DNA, isn't it? That we just do not, you know, we can tell bullshit, and it's sort of, I sort of think, you know, I've really struggled with Sam, like you guys just did just before, and I just thought that was weird. He's got quite a temper on him, you know, like he's obviously, yeah, he just can't. I don't think his future in politics is very long. You can't be like that. And I watched that guy Simon Upton today, and I thought, man, he just nailed them, eh? He's just amazing. Sam actually doesn't say anything even when he does say something.
Nah, Sam wants to do fight night with every submitter that's coming through the door.
Yeah, and it's terrible. It's terrible to watch, and yeah, it's sort of, I don't know. I think what is sort of cool is that we're just such a small little country, and we're just so unique, and we don't have farm subsidies, and we've sort of been able to almost hold big agriculture at bay, and then now we just want to let it all flood in.
Mm.
You know,
Now-
so.
Oh, sorry. Now, Claire, you said you had to go. You wanted to finish up or say any final comments or anything like that?
No, it was just, Michael, you're bang on. You really are. Sam Uffindale became more and more stroppy, I think. You know, at the beginning he looked like this really nice guy, but in the end I think he actually got frustrated with the fact that there wasn't enough people supporting his bill. And if you actually have a look, there is a conflict of interest with this select committee because New Zealand First, ACT and National are actually forwarding this bill. So they get frustrated when the bill is shown to have these holes in it, because they've actually got it to a stage with Judith Collins. And I think a lot of them are ignorant. And so they actually are not aware of what is being brought up. And I think 15,000 submissions, that's a hell of a lot to have to go through. And I just think they're well out of their depth. And just interestingly, I'm not sure if Lisa said this. I will finish up as soon as I can. But she has launched a petition saying halt the bill and start a commission of inquiry. And everybody who's listening, we really, really, really want people to sign this petition. It's going to be a hybrid petition. So there may be people who could sign with a pen, like, as well as online. But we are hoping to be able to get this through before the second reading, because we believe that we have to put pressure so this second reading never gets passed and this bill gets halted or withdrawn. And as I was saying in the last section, the question needs to be asked, would those people who say they support it with incredible amount of concerns or amendments, would they support it if these amendments don't go ahead? So I'll leave you with that. And Michael, you were bang on with everything, and you're most welcome in my terms to say whatever words you feel you need to say.
Claire, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for holding down the fort when I couldn't speak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, I suddenly realised that what was going to happen. So, yeah, kia kaha, you're doing a really brilliant job, and keep up with it.
Cheers, Claire.
Okay, see you, Michael. Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, so we get on to the submissions.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm just used to a touch screen.
Brennan, Sam Uffendale here, Chair of the Health Committee. Very nice to have you joining us. We have you here for 5 minutes. You may leave us time for questions if you want, but I'll hand it to you now. Thank you.
Hi, kia ora. Can you hear me?
We have you. Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Kia ora. So yeah, my name is Brennan Katalioti. I'm a wine grower, organically certified wine grower on Banks Peninsula, South Island. And the reason I oppose this bill is because as a wine grower and as an organic farmer and food producer, we use a lot of techniques like cover crops, composting, trying to understand our environment, the soil life to grow our food and to make it pristine, to make it extremely nutrient dense, to make the best wine as possible, to lower our impact on the environment that we live in, the waterways that are going through our vineyard or farms and going down eventually to the sea. So we go through a tremendous amount of work. I don't have time to explain all of it, but to lower our impact, build up soil, build up organic matter. And unfortunately, GMOs fail to do that. Today, we have the tools to lower our impact on our environment. We have the tools organically to mitigate climate change, pollution, the loss of biodiversity, and organic and regenerative farming can do that. They absolutely can, and it's been proven. It hasn't been proven that GMOs products can do that. There was no study made on that. And there's absolutely no study that can claim that GMOs can mitigate climate change or are even a benefit to our health. So that is why I oppose it. Also because New Zealand has an amazing status in the world of being GE-free. And this is incredible for our reputation and also our economy. We're talking possibly billions of dollars lost if New Zealand becomes a country that has no regulation on GMOs. And no regulation is very dangerous. It's very scary. It's scary for growers. It's scary for consumers. It's scary for everybody. We will suffer from such a move because people will move away from New Zealand and New Zealand's products. New Zealand's products that are supposedly clean and green. GMOs are not clean and green. So if that bill has to pass, one thing that we absolutely need is a huge amount of regulation on the study, on the growing. I think it should not be out in our environment again, because once you open the gates, that's it. You can't go back. It is literally impossible to take GMOs back from the environment, back into a lab, And the one question that I have is why? Why does New Zealand want to become a testing ground for the world, for the rest of the world, when we have such an amazing status of being GE-free? We need to invest heavily in organic, invest heavily in regenerative farming, and we do not need GE products. We absolutely don't need them. There's no benefits. It is just going to shoot ourselves in the foot for the future and for the future generations. As an organic grower, very quickly, it is already quite expensive and difficult to claim that we are organic, and it is going to be even more difficult and even more expensive now if GE products, seeds, organisms are allowed into the environment. Same for our wineries with the yeast and the bacteries. And will the government take care of that cost? Will they be accountable if something goes wrong? That bill doesn't offer that, and that is a big, big concern. So yeah, again, my question is why? And if it does pass, we need the government to step up, subsidize the cost that we will be bearing, but also regulate heavily on the use and production and sales of GMOs. GMOs only benefit corporations that are manufacturing and selling these products over the many, many, many consumers, farmers, politicians, everyone in this country will not benefit from GMOs. Only a few will benefit. So that is a concern, massive concern, and I do hope it doesn't pass. But if it does pass, we need to work extremely hard on regulation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Renan. Very good to have you here today.
Okay. He does bring up a bunch of interesting questions. For me, the big thought that's coming to mind is, isn't organically produced wine, isn't that one of our biggest exports to the States?
I think it, yeah. So we actually could end up being, we could end up going a lot more in with all sorts of things like that. I think this latest round of tariffs, it's inadvertently they've brought attention to what their actual own meat is. You know, Trump called his meat is manly meat. You know, like it's real meat because it's got hormones put in it, and you know,
okay,
it makes it like real big and real manly.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
and the EU doesn't want, you know, they don't want tough meat. You know, from
I'll put it this
America.
way.
So
Trump's
that's why he's penalising them. We've always had a struggle selling meat up to the last 5 years into or our product up to the last 5 years into America, but the American food system's collapsed so badly that most of their meat now comes from Australia, New Zealand, and Argentina, and the American consumer really didn't like our meat to start with because they reckon it tastes like liver because it's actually got a taste, you know, like
our beef back.
Yeah, and now they're really getting to like it, and they especially like it in the burgers.
Yeah, they do
because of the fat. So, and I think they're also getting a real liking, like you say, to our meat, our wine, but it's not just a boutique product thing in America. The just the wanting the naturally farmed stuff, and it's enough for Americans if it's GE free, hormone free, grass fed. You know, and it's like, as you can, I think, like, you know, what the real theme of this is the people that would tell that story, they're very few. Like if you look at Fonterra and you watch those people that speak for Fonterra or that speak for any of our lobby groups, they're bloody awful. Like, why would you be compelled to buy things off these people? And they say that they're the people that sell our stuff. Whereas that other guy, you know, he's talking about Pure Advantage and stuff like that. He, you know, and all that, all of our, you know, even this guy, you know, he's telling you how he makes the product. He's basically being transparent. There's nothing transparent about our industry. I mean, Greenpeace today are protesting another whole big heap of palm kernel coming in, you know, and, you know, they've got to then fall all over themselves. It's like, oh, well, it's not taking down a forest. It's like, well, how can it not? Because it's palm. It's obviously come from a forest of palms, you know, like it's a whole habitat that's gone. There's 40,000 tons of palm kernel. You know, no one's growing it commercially. So yeah, it's no, it's 100% that's with what he'll be doing, it's like no added sugar, it's just the beat. Like, this is the market that can always hold in tough times, because people won't not want to buy his product, whereas they've got no reason to buy the commercial wine product. That there's nothing unique about it. They can buy that from anywhere. It's like, so he's got it in spades. But why haven't we heard about him before? Why haven't we heard? We don't hear about these people. These aren't the people that we've been, like our New Zealand food story is just so poorly told.
Yeah, I mean, while Trump's running around with his gender-affirming beef, all this horse in it, some people, people do want a choice. Like, I could think of multiple reasons why someone may want to not buy a GMO laced product. Maybe they disagree with the ethics of that company. This it's not just about health, but it's also about ethical concerns as well.
Well,
I don't go out of my way to buy Monsanto because I don't like their business practices.
But people will say, "Oh, I'm gluten intolerant," but then I go over to Italy and I have pasta over there and I can eat it. And like that is becoming. That's something that started out as a little bit of a murmuring on the internet, and now there's just huge podcaster after another that's saying, "Wow, and this whole being cautious of what you eat and what you expect to have in it and what you don't expect to have in it, that's a human consciousness that's always going to, when organics make an export market or Regen makes an export market, it's to keep. It's not flippant, but I mean, there's not all the future of it either. I mean, the thing is we need to feed the people better at home. So, that at the same time we're doing all of this, we're talking about bringing in another supermarket. It's like we need to bring little local co-ops and stuff like that and just liberate food, But no, he's the more people that I don't know that you can necessarily sway Sam. He is the chair. I don't know how you sway some of the people on this committee, because there's one guy that he's been sitting there the whole time, and he's a national MP, and I've heard him speak twice. And he's a science researcher. So, like sort of the writing's a little bit on the wall with it, that they expect to just rush it through. And then every time somebody accuses them of doing it, they get way too upset for that not to be a bit of a confirmation that yes, we are trying to rush it through, because they overreact. Yeah. It's just,
Yes, I definitely see that. It's like, whoa, Sam.
Yeah.
Call your jets. It's not fight night. It's not debate club. These people are just submitting their opinions.
Yeah. Hey, did you see the one with the grey power guy?
Oh no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, wait till you see that. That's gold. That's gold. He tried to.
All right.
He tried to stop him, but he couldn't. He couldn't stop him. The grey power guy, he just had it all over him. It was real good, actually. But yeah. Anyway.
Thank
you.
All right. Next submission.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, we have Cam Salt. In person. Excellent. Welcome, Cam. Great to have you here. We've got you for 5 minutes. And that's you now. Got it.
Kia ora, I'm Cam. I just want to clarify, I'm making a submission as an individual. My views do not represent any ministries I work with, and any opinions, including political ones, are my own, and my work in the public service has no connection to the topic we're discussing today.
Thank you.
My overall position is tentative support of the bill. I support the overall intent of better regulation that's risk proportionate, and use of GE outside the lab. I have concerns about some of the details that will not promote proper investment and management of GE. Gene technology is a powerful tool, and I think it's useful for future generations to have more tools available since we're inheriting a polycrisis. There are valid concerns about GE, and there have been misuse. But the 2 decades of research since our last major discussion on this topic has shown that those concerns arise from business practices and poor use, not inherent risks of the technology. The scientific consensus on the safety of GE relative to other biotechnology methods commonly used, and our regulation should be risk proportionate and evidence-based. The challenge we face is developing a social license that invests in uses that will deliver benefits that are tangible to the consumer and the community, and our settings in regulation need to allow that to be promoted. Attitudes to GE are changing, and the challenges we face are growing greater. I think it's unwise for us to not allow GE to be developed further. The main points in my submission I'd like to draw your attention to is my recommendation that we add an assessment to the benefits of GE in the decision-making process, that decision-making powers are granted to the Māori Advisory Group, and that reviewing the appropriateness of the General Policy Direction Clause, section 111.1b, and instead incorporating written policy directions on what we want GE to be achieving. Is there any questions about my submission?
Yes, great submission, Cam. Thank you. Good to see you here in person. You were concerned about the removal of the precautionary principle, and that you say it's not actually reserved because it's in the Convention on Biodiversity. Actually, that wasn't what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about point C you made was that the consumer, connected community, and farmer typically carry the perceived risk of a GE product, but then they do not often get the potential benefits of it. So you're asking that benefits are taken into account because that enables the regulator to assess whether the risk is worth taking because of the perceived benefit. Can you expand on the importance of assessing benefits thoroughly?
So a big issue we've seen with GE is that when quite large corporations have used it, they've done it to reduce the cost of production or to introduce business models that incentivize a bit perverse in the model. And I think it's natural for people to be skeptical of GE. It is the idea of someone manipulating nature, manipulating, playing God. And when you are told that this is safe, this is good, but there's no tangible benefit to you, you don't see the results. You just hear that it's now cheaper to grow this product, or it's going to be easier for farmers to do it. I think you're less willing to accept it. But when we've seen methods that deliver a benefit to consumers, such as the product is more nutritious, or that the cost of the product is reduced, or that it's helping address a disease or disorder that's affecting people, I think they're more willing to accept it. Sorry, was there something inside your question I meant not?
No, that's good. That's a good explanation. So, because currently the proposed legislation will only evaluate risks, but it won't actually assess benefits. So that there's potential that there could be a corporate introducing a genetically modified thing that increases herbicide use, so it benefits them, but it doesn't benefit the public. And you're saying that that assessment to ensure that things are for the public good, benefits should be taken into account as part of the assessment.
Yes, and I think how you prioritize what we pass, benefits are helpful for that. And when we only assess on risk, you can have two products that might have the same risk, but our willingness to accept it will differ on the benefit it has. So the COVID vaccine would be a good example. We expedited its use and got it out quicker because the benefit of it is we were responding to a pandemic and needed something instantly. But I wouldn't want every single vaccine to go through that same expedited process. If you only judged a risk, that could be logically done. We also have to consider things like the world is changing rapidly. We see increased risk of disease spreading, especially with climate change. And when horticulture is hit, it's hit quite quick. If you have benefits as part of the assessment, such as a new virus being introduced into our industry, you could then expedite that specific response over techniques which are more about long-term adaptation.
Thank you. We're out of time now. Thank you very much for coming here today and presenting to us.
Thank you.
Okay. I actually really liked Cam's recommendation to have transparency around who benefits from the type of tech that's being proposed. What did you think of his point?
Yeah, I think the so you got to revert back to in the other act that sort of at the moment how it's governed at the moment. So you have to do that when you're evaluating any gene tech product. So you're evaluating is there anything in the marketplace that's similar without it being GE, and just got to remember that the submitter's coming from a position where he's suggesting and so the preponderance of evidence tells us that we actually haven't, there's nothing there sitting in this whole plethora of things that they've been editing, and probably 90% of the breeding work that's been done in New Zealand in the last 30 years has been with gene editing. So if you looked at the human man hours that have been spent, they've got one ryegrass, one clover, a couple of endophyte vaccines that they're working on, and something else. Another high energy grass, which is not a lot for all of that work. But if you were looking at what already exists naturally, there's hundreds of things. And if the research had been split 50-50 between GE and natural breeding, we probably would have had quite a lot more stuff. The evaluating of the benefits, what we've seen with the industry is it over exaggerates the benefits, because when it goes to testing, none of them manifest. And so, and that can carry through a poor regulator that doesn't test it. And then we see the actual patented product that's been sold as a startup ends up on the market and nobody picks it up and runs with it. And that's why there's very, very few gene edit products in all sorts of different regulations or regulatory frameworks. So I understand what he's saying, and even when he's talking about disease, it's like I think that we are in the highest risk of total crop loss and major export losses with the way that farming's gone because of the patent system. And we've just seen that with one of the biggest cherry farmers, the cherry price drops. He's basically monopolized the cherry market. He sells the cherry pickers, and he's done everything. And he's got 4 massive farms. Price drops, he goes broke. He owes $90 million. That's the end of that. But it happened with kiwi fruit. We all decided we wanted to grow kiwi fruit. 6 big players got into it and busted. And then next thing, the next lot set up, and it's only going to be in this area, and then a virus goes through it, and they're all back to back, and it just wiped the whole lot out. So it's sort of like everything that we offer, and just going back. Regenerative farming is nothing new. It's 40 centuries of agriculture. It's just how we used to farm. You don't put cows in the paddock that's going to flood. You have to have a diversity of things. Do you know what I mean? So I hear what he's saying, but you've got to cut to the problem with this idea is you can't have coexistence, and money spent for innovative product that's actually worth a dime, there's nothing. And so you've got to say, what are we doing this for? And what if we channeled all of that money and put it somewhere else, like in healthcare, or we bought the ferries so that we could cross, because I think even though we're agonizing over this and we want to give it the benefit, I think with the massive PR companies that have been running this, even so far as our Science, Nature, or whatever it is, that's a PR company. They've been extolling the virtues of these things more than if the regulator was put in a situation where he had to extol the virtue. It's almost very close to where the regulator would be actually not only extolling the virtues of it, but also having to manufacture the social license for you and me to eat it. And then that also gives credence to the fact that, well, no government department would do that. So it would probably be better just to get 6 guys from Monsanto to be the regulator, because they're better. You know what I mean? It's like, even if
I know.
That's what we're heading
what
towards in that submission.
I mean, basically what you're describing there is the issues with capitalism. Where's the profit in researching what already exists, plants that you can't slap a patent on, when you can make big bang and big buck off genetic researching?
And it doesn't really worry them. It doesn't worry them at all if they make something out of GE. So they make a pink elephant, and they make the pink elephant company, and our regulator says, yep, you can start growing pink elephants. They just sell the startup for like $500 million. Everybody's happy. There might not even be any pink elephants, but it doesn't matter. We made $500 million. That's all it does.
Okay. All right. Next
up,
submission.
we have Peter Morgan. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Sam, are you?
I am. We have you here for 5 minutes, so I'll hand the time to you now. Thanks.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm just an ordinary Joe Blogs. I used to farm a long time ago in another lifetime, and I'm not happy about this bill at all. I feel that it is a mischievous bill. It's for the benefit of corporations, not for ordinary individuals. I think that it's going to seriously affect farming, as you've heard from 2 speakers from Vineyards. They took the words right out of my mouth. They said it more eloquently, probably. I think the introduction of GMOs into agriculture is a Pandora's box that we can't close. It's once it's open, it's all over forever as far as organic farming goes. I mean, plutonium-239 has got a half-life of 24,000 years. Well, this is forever. Once we do this, there's no going back. One of the things in the bill, it says there's going to be a fit and proper person will get the license. Well, what is a person? Black's law defines a person as it could be a man or a woman, a living man or a woman, or it could be a corporation. A corporation is a fictitious entity. It's a dead entity. It has no personality. It can't be a good person or a bad person. Corporations are notoriously bad as far as they have no qualms about something goes wrong. Oh, well, we just pay the fine. It's there are many corporations that consider paying a fine or court fees to be part of the cost of doing business. The other thing, the root word for corporation is corpse. So you can't have a corpse with a personality or being a fit and proper person, you know. So how do you decide who's a fit and proper person to have a license? And the other thing that the bill says there's no testing on human beings. It states human beings. I don't know why it says that, because Black's law also says that a human being is a monster. So maybe they're protecting monsters, not living men and women. In actual fact, we're all going to be in this experiment. This is going to affect us all, our children, our grandchildren. I've got 3 granddaughters, and they're going to grow up with the possibility of this happening, affecting them. Who knows what their life will be? Maybe they'll go into farming, but it'll be a different world. They're going to have to deal with possible contamination of seeds. Even these people with the vineyards were talking about their crops between the rows for producing organic matter in the ground. Ordinary people growing vegetables at home will be affected. You know, not just farmers and agriculture. It'll be every single person who has a garden at home and who wants to grow organically in their own home. They will potentially be affected. And the next windfall for corporations will be litigation, because someone's selling a product that's got a genetically modified seed in it or something, and they're not using it with a license. This is what happens in America. People get bankrupted because they unwittingly sold a product that has a GMO component, and they are affected by it, whether they know it or not. This is the thing they've already mentioned, no labelling. They're not required to label a GMO product. It's outrageous. I mean, it's beggars belief. I'm staggered by it. They're basically just experimenting with us. All I can say is that I'm opposed to this bill, and I'm speaking for ordinary people out there like me that have to work and earn a living, pay your wages. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We had a couple of questions, but we're pretty much on time now. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time to make your submission and also to present to us in person as well.
Thank you. Well, I've driven 200 kilometres to come and say this.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Where have you come?
Wanganui.
Right, good on you.
Yeah.
And you've said you're worried about not being eloquent, but your presentation was very good.
Yeah, it's very clear, very concise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, at least Sam didn't try to fight him.
Yeah, well, the thing was, is he really, if you overlaid it over the other guy that I watched, that Sam went off at, there was nothing that guy said that wasn't exactly what the other guy was saying. So, I don't know I think he's just, I haven't got a good feeling about him.
Maybe he needs maybe Sam just needs a Snickers bar. I mean, I saw him eating his pen before, so
Yeah,
maybe
he
he's
was
hungry.
cold. That's what it was. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because he was cold. After that guy finished, and he's saying how cold he was, and it was cold in the room, and all that sort of thing. So it's yeah. Poor little baby.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what Peter just said.
Yeah. So do I. And I think the thing is I think the really sad thing is that so many people just are being corralled into a thing that we actually have to make a decision about this. I don't know why we have to make a decision about this. We've got like this abundance of what we can do, or this little tiny thing, and it's just, I guess, and it's still being talked about like it's the next big thing. And seriously, in science, I've been reading the literature for 30 years. It's always the next big thing. It's just around the corner. It's going to explode. That's what it's been like. Like all of the other people that are following it, like Lisa and, and especially Claire, like the thing is we've watched them say that it's the next big thing, and it just hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. And I think maybe one day it's like it's a reactionary tool to something, like it might be able to do something for something. But like as far as food and medicine goes, I think it's a distraction, and it probably stops people from doing the things that they really should be doing. And that's a bit scary, because it could make people really sick and then leave us without the tools at all to be out, the normal tools that we need. Like they might, like if you get crook and you need like antibiotics, you need them to work. And if they start making gene edit antibiotics and they just don't work on you, you die.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's when it comes to agricultural use, I think GMO tech is overhyped.
No, I just think it's a way. The fact that none of the people pro have been able to say anything more than we need help making the public eat it, and we don't really want to pay for the consequences, but we want to basically try and ring fence the consequences in, but whoever gets contaminated, we want them to pay for it. It's just all nuts. It's just absolutely nuts.
Alrighty, so that was Peter, and now we're going to go on to the next submission. I'll just look at my notes. Who's up next? Okay, I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, next up we have Hai Song-gu, here to present to us for 5
Name's
minutes.
a little bit tricky to pronounce. There we go.
Thank you, too, for your extensive written submission. We have you for 5 minutes. I'll hand it to you now. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Health Committee. Thank you for this opportunity to make an oral submission on the Gene Technology Bill. My name is Hai Song-gu, and I'm making a submission this morning in my personal capacity as an independent scholar of law. Professionally, I'm a lawyer in private practice, and I wish to make clear that my views reflect my own personally. During my time in academia, I undertook in-depth legal research on New Zealand's human gene editing laws, which became the topic of my honours dissertation and article recently published in the Auckland University Law Review Journal. My research aims to guide legislative and regulatory reforms in human gene editing in New Zealand and presents a framework of considerations that is future-focused and supported by a comparative analysis of New Zealand and international law. In the interest of time, I propose to focus my oral submission today on 3 key considerations I've raised through my submissions where I believe that further guidance by Parliament could be required. Before going into those specific areas, I briefly wish to commend the overall efforts for regulatory reform through this bill, which acknowledges the need to modernise an outdated regime. I note also that my submission speaks only from a legal perspective and in the context of human healthcare and medicine. So turning to my first point, there needs to be a greater integration of public consultation requirements in the bill's risk tiering model. The public must be engaged in informing the regulators' risk tolerance at the margins, where there is uncertainty around the desired societal outcomes from the use of gene technology. The bill currently envisages that lower risk medical activity involving the application of gene technology would not require public consultation except at the discretion of the regulator. I wish to remind the committee that the journey of law reform is not separate from interrelated ethical and normative questions about the permissible and impermissible circumstances of human genome editing. To address these contentious questions, much broader public participation from across New Zealand's communities, which proactively engages with Māori in accordance with Te Tiriti o Waitangi, is necessary. The second point I wish to highlight is the need for legislative protection against gene-based discrimination, particularly as gene testing becomes increasingly integrated into medical treatment, clinical therapy, and research under a more permissive regulatory framework. Looking at international law, discrimination based on genetic characteristics is explicitly prohibited in the United Nations Universal Declaration on the Human Genome and Human Rights. In New Zealand, there is currently no equivalent express protection in legislation, which creates an inherent vulnerability in the law. The third point I wish to bring to the committee's attention is a potential gap in regulatory oversight of heritable changes to the human genome under the existing legislation. The clear policy intent of the bill is to maintain the status quo prohibitions on heritable human genome editing, but this is not made explicit. Without blanket prohibitions in legislation, there would need to be clearer regulatory parameters and legislative safeguards to ensure the safe use of gene technology, especially in clinical settings and in human reproductive assisted procedures. As a concluding remark, with the appropriate considerations, this bill presents an opportunity to introduce evidence-based, fit-for-purpose human gene editing laws in New Zealand that is adaptable to changes. This concludes my oral submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good submission. We have time for one question. Steve.
Yeah, it's very concerning that there's no, as you say, there's without a blanket prohibition against heritable human gene editing legislation, human germline editing could proceed in privately funded clinical research without appropriate regulatory oversight. So we really need to clear that up. If it's the intention that germline editing should not be achievable, we have to explicitly state that. Is that your message?
That's right. If that is the policy intent, then there could be benefit from much clearer legislation. A lot of the intent comes through secondary regulation, which has been recognised in the cabinet papers and in the introduction of the bill, but there could be benefit in making that clearer in the legislation in the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great submission, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just caught Sam Uppendale. He's like, oh shit, I didn't think about that. Better write that down. Add that to the amendment list.
Yeah. Look, hey, it's a really tough thing when it's starting to get personal, when it's like, oh, we're starting to talk about editing them ourselves. I did watch a previous, she was really good. She's saying about the ethical rights, and this is definitely not in my wheelhouse, because the only thing that I've seen, I saw one, I thought his submission was very, very protective of industry. She wanted the bill to be even more harsh on protecting all of data and things like that, people that were seeking a license through the regulator, that they didn't have to disclose different things, and that there's all sorts of things. But it was, they're talking about stuff they would basically be doing to you and me, but all she was worried about was the rights of these big pharmaceutical companies. So that sort of got me up, riled me up the wrong way. But then I sort of thought, then she said that she thought the bill needed something where it said that people, where it's basically their, an end of life choice, like they're going to die anyway, but there's a doctor or a scientist or something who wants to, do some gene editing on them to save their life. They should have the right to be able to do that. Even though I'm against GE, I agree. But yeah, as far as what that lady's going on about, I haven't read anything on the medical side of it, and I wouldn't pretend to be proficient in it. But what I think she's saying, I think that she's saying that the bill's trying to say it's doing one thing, but it's actually doing another. And it's consistent all the way through the bill. So, I don't even know. I love to, the thing is if I was on this committee, I'd be saying, look, I want to put the committee into recess. I want whoever wrote this bill to come and sit before us and spend half a day and tell us what were they thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I just, who the hell wrote it? Because
I think it might have been Judith Collins.
Yeah, I don't know. They say it was Ministry of Business and Innovation Policy. So, and I know there's, I know there's a hell of a lot of people working there, but feel like it's industry written, don't you?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yes. Yeah, especially when I see the people that are coming out advocating for this bill. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, the biotech, they're like the CEOs of biotech companies.
Yeah.
I was watching, Jack Tame Q&A with that guy who compared the adoption of GMO tech to the adoption of automobiles, and I thought, nah, this is weird. Those two are not equivalent, man.
Yeah.
You can't cross-pollinate cars.
No, that would be Dr. Bill Rolliston. He's really problematic because he's by what I can tell, a really central figure that's really helped drive this. I don't know how much he's been paid. I'd love to be able to take an official information request into the different things that he's in. So he's in this thing called Life Sciences, which is it's an elevator. It's what you call an elevator platform. So basically, it's what stores and promotes and collects scientific studies and data and things like that, and is a resource for governments and councils and all this sort of thing, and for people in universities and stuff. He's the chair of that. He used to be the head of Federated Farmers. He has a huge animal pharmaceutical company in bloods and blood serums, and his next big investments in genetically engineered blood serums to take him into the next century. The smallest part of his thing is he's got a small farm, a sheep farm, but like he is just in and across everything, and he's been probably the worst behaving lobbyist that we've seen in this, because in his first submission he sat down and he said, well, I am a farmer. In the second submission he sits down and he goes, I am a scientist. And yeah, and like you said in the Q&A thing, next thing he comes in and he's the actual, not just a scientist, but he's like the king
Head of the
all
company.
scientists, because he's in life science. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like it's big agribusiness. All of us in organics and regenerative, we're like a heat-seeking device for the bullshit artists. They just come at us, man. They like all of the, you know, Dr. Doug Eade Meads. He just writes column after column in the Farmers Weekly about what a load of nonsense that we talk and all the rest of it, and we're doing this and we're doing that. This bill has really dragged out the PR companies and all the lobbyists that exist and circulate through the revolving door of our parliament. And, you know, what an opportune time it would be for someone to draft up a law, for an antitrust law, to come in and sweep all these people up and boot them out. We could, like, Luxon wants to save billions of dollars in public money spent. We must be spending billions on these people, because they seem to be everywhere. You know, they've certainly been doing a job on Sam, you know, and so yeah, I think there's so much that we can learn from this little moment in time that could be good, you know, that we could be like the phoenix coming out of the fire as people, because I think even everyday farmers have suddenly got that it's not us hippie farmers that are stopping them from having this stuff. It's that they really don't need it, and they really shouldn't be dipping their toes into it, you know, like it's got nothing to do with us. I hope, because I'm sort of sick of being the bad guy, you know. But no.
I think we have time for one more submission. I'll just see what Sam has to say in the chat. Not Sam Uppendale. Sam Summers, everyone. Other Sam. But
Okay,
yes,
next
we'll
up
go
we
into
have
the next
John
submission.
Barnes.
Yeah.
John, good to have you here. You've been sitting throughout. We have 5 minutes. I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you today. I have had a lifetime experience in farming in New Zealand and 30 years selling fertiliser within New Zealand, so I've got a pretty good understanding about how things work. More recently, I've been working alongside Lincoln University on finding new ways of doing things, and we've found that we can cut nitrogen in half. And so today I just really want to look at a positive way of actually farming going forward in the future that maybe doesn't include GMs to that extent. And so I'm sure that you've read my submission, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have along that line. So essentially, just to jog your memory, we've actually cut nitrogen by 50%, and we've kept production going at the same speed. We've actually grown the same amount of grass, and by just getting the soil back to health again and putting more life back into the soil and helping that to regenerate itself. So we aren't organic and we aren't regen, but we are doing things in a way that actually is making things work.
How have you cut nitrogen use by 50%?
How have we cut it?
Yeah. What have you done?
Well, soils will produce their own nitrogen. All right. So if you allow the soils to do their job, they will actually do what they need to do. Just like, you know, my job is to heal the soil. All right. And we can do that by actually allowing the soils to do that. Earthworms, a whole range of things, nitrogen out of the atmosphere, clover, and all those sorts of things. We have actually done that at Lincoln University.
That's fascinating.
It's good.
So, I mean, there's plenty of farmers right now in New Zealand farming without any synthetic nitrogen fertilizer at all. It's perfectly doable.
Oh, yeah.
So, what would your concerns be that one of the headline crops they're proposing that's genetically modified is white clover? We export 50% of the, I think 50% of the global supply of clover seed comes from New Zealand.
Yes, that's right.
And what would your concern be in terms of the huge importance of that, you know, nitrogen fixing legume that is white clover, if it becomes genetically modified, around the natural solutions, the land-based solutions, soil growing solutions for the problems we've faced?
will compromise our whole farming system.
Yep.
Because I mean, you either have it or you don't have it. You can't have a little bit of GM. Once you've let it in, that's what it is. We have the opportunity here in New Zealand, as an isolated island country, if you like, to actually be different and to be the people that we are. And that's really what I want to be. I mean, I'm not against bringing in GE for whatever reasons, but do we need to do that? We don't have to. We can make a difference being who we are.
Yeah, it's that point of difference that we're GMO free.
Yes, yes. We are one of the biggest producers of small seeds. You take Canterbury, that's the biggest area of small seeds of just about anywhere in New Zealand. We export so much of those small seeds. Put GE in the middle of that, we're nothing. We're done. End of story. Who are we?
Good man.
We're just like everybody else.
Thank you, John. Very strong. Thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
So add to my list of interesting submissions that I'll.
There's a lot of them, eh?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah. I love the guy. I think he's awesome. But just special note. We're not organic and we're not regen. It's like, like I said, I'm sick of being the bad guy. Personally, we haven't put fertilizer on for 38 years. We've not used spray. We're not, we're not certified organic or anything. But I think we probably have less spray residues than an organic farm. I grow heaps of grass. I know what he's talking about because I read the DSIR paper, which was in 1980. It said that there was absolutely no benefit from putting urea on pasture because it killed the nitrogen bacteria that naturally makes things. So,
and then you get the runoff as well and all that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's the uric acid that's going into the, making the nitrate, right? So we know all of this sort of stuff. And these guys he's a fertilizer guy. And it's beautiful about this story. He's a guy that sold fertilizer and he still wants to be able to sell fertilizer. So even if he can sell half as much, he's happy. So he goes to Lincoln University and he finds out he can sell half as much. The real thing is if he actually jigs down into the papers, into the scientific papers, he wouldn't be selling any fertilizer. So
the funny thing is that with
he's
GMOs,
still protecting his interest. But even some guy that's a lobbyist in a way, and he's only lobbying for his small percentage of his sales budget that he gets. It might mean instead of getting like $70,000 or $80,000 a year, he gets a bonus of another 10 grand, right? He's not trying to break the bank, right? But he's still, he looks at GE and he's wise, he's old, he's been around, he's been overseas. With fertilizer companies, man, you get to go everywhere. You see it. And he's come back and he said, no way, man, we're not bringing this shit into this country. And I just say, even though he's still putting the boot in, I don't care. It's like, he's still, his thing is like, hey, but no, not the GE. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. That's the best. I'm so pleased that you actually showed me that one because I haven't seen that. I think that's cool.
I was just going to bring up the point. I didn't want to interrupt you though, but I was going to bring up the point that GMOs, right, that fix all their own nitrogen would be a threat to the fertilizer industry, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it could be that he's thinking that, I don't know, but I think, it would do because it would wipe it out. Like that's actually a thing, They are trying to do that. That's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have patented that, and they want to get they want to be able to bottle endophytes, and then you put like a cupful in about 3,000 litres of water and spray it on the paddock, and it kills all your endophytes and just leaves their one. I don't know. I don't think that's his conspiracy. I think he's just down his way. There's a lot of us where he's come from. There's more regen in the South Island, and they're rowdy little buggers like me, probably even rowdier, and they really are because it's lonely down there. So they've created this whole network that's huge, and he's probably feeling threatened by it, because people want to go to a regen get together. They don't really want to go to a balance get together because they're boring. You know, like the fertilizer ones, there's no fun. Like, you know, we're just normal people. We're not.
I don't know, make a bomb or something. What else do you do with fertilizer?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can make bombs. You can, because that's what the funny thing with urea is. That's what the Germans made urea for, was to make bombs.
Yes. Yep.
And also you can use it for compost.
Oh yeah. No, he was cool. I love him. I think I want one of him just to have on hand. You know,
He would be fun at the pub.
Yeah. Like, isn't it funny how they reacted to him though? I work for a fertilizer company. Oh, next thing, oh hello, these things work. It's like you go in there and you say, oh, I'm an organic wine grower. It's like, oh shit, you know, is there something I can buy on Temu? You know, it's like, yeah, how's my shares in, you know, Sam's looking at his phone, how's my shares in that biotech company going, you know?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you, and we'll see you on the next time.
Will do. Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be closing out now.
Awesome.
Thank you for watching The Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. Every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Productions, live at 8 p.m. New Zealand